Good morning, everyone. We're just going to make sure that we can be heard in the Zoom webinar.
We're hearing you well in Zoom, Sam. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks, Matthew and Stephen. Okay. We are ready to begin.
Thank you, Sam. Good morning and welcome to the Lake County Board of Supervisors meeting for May 17th, 2023. I'll call this meeting to order and start with a moment of silence. Do you have one, Supervisor Crandall?
Yes, I do. So I'd like to have this moment of silence for Patricia Augustine. Patty was a beloved Pomo elder of Robinson Rancheria. Patty and her husband Wilbur were instrumental in the development of the Robinson Rancheria Education Center. They lived on the Upper Lake land for Robinson, which is known as Old Robinson. She obtained her credential from Humboldt State University, her teaching credential from Humboldt State University, while raising 5 children. Patty and her husband dedicated their lives to helping their community and connecting their traditions. She loved beading, weaving, and attending big times, and she is now with her husband, who recently passed in 2020. We offer our deepest condolences to their family.
Boris Brumfield, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any extra items?
I have none.
Okay. Then we'll move on to approval of the consent agenda. Item 5, do we have any items that need to be pulled? Supervisor Spatier?
Madam Chair, I'd like to pull item 5.5 and 5.6.
Anybody else? Anyone from the public wish to pull an item? Hotel guests, do you have your hand up?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Michael Rodriguez. I am under an ordinance that hasn't been brought up. We were under the impression that we were going to fall in the cannabis
Okay, this is for pulling items off the consent agenda. Do you have an item that you want to pull? If it's a public input, we'll come back to you at 9:06.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Madam Chair, move to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 5.5 and 5.6.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. And we have 2 minutes before our 9:06 item. So I guess we'll just wait 2 minutes. We don't have a quick one. Are either of yours quick? 5.5 or 5.6? No, not 5.5. 5.6?
I just have a statement to make, and so if it only lasts my statement and there's no further comments, then it will be quick.
Okay. By the time I get done reading that, it'll be 9:06. So we'll just wait. Proclamations are timed. Yeah. Probably like 20 more seconds. Oh, Johanna, the proclamations? Nice. Okay, it is now 9:06 a.m. 6.1 item, public input. Anyone in the chambers wish to come up for public input? You will have 3 minutes. You can state your name.
Good morning. My name is Greg Bianchini. I live on 13th Avenue in Lucerne, and my issue and the problem is with the needle exchange program, any positive change. And I just wanted to let you guys know clearly that she is giving out, passing out material to young children. I physically have caught her doing that, and I've talked to the boys too. They're 14 and 15 years old. Anyways, the people that live on 13th Street, we're just fed up with this needle exchange program, and she needs to move on to somewhere that's safe, where there's no children and no businesses. She has no business being, and I mean, it's a family street. This needs to just move. I think she could move to Hill in Highway 20. It's at the beginning of town. And I just want to make sure, I've been here 15 times now, 15 times, and I know you guys have done some work on it, but enough is enough. She needs to move on to where it's safe, where there's no children and elderly people, and set up in front of people's homes across the street, from people's homes. If she set up tonight across the street from any of your guys' house, there would be a problem with it. So, I mean, the people of Lucerne matter too, and especially these children. These children are our future. They don't need to be anywhere near that truck. I mean, on the side of the truck, it says, no more war on drugs, no more drug war, get high with a friend. These kids don't need to see that. None of the residents of Lucerne need to see this, and just something needs to be done. Please, please help us. I'm not against this program at all. I've never once came in here and complained about this, what she's trying to do, but where she's doing it and how she's doing it is an issue. And it's a serious problem. Like I said, these kids are our future. They don't need to be anywhere near this truck. So if you guys could please do something about this. This has been going on for way, way too long. And like I said, if this was set up across the street from your mom's house or your dad's house, this would not be okay. And I didn't want to bring that up. I've been holding that back, but I have to say that. I wouldn't wish that on any of you guys, but just imagine that. Think about that. If tonight she's set up across the street from your mom's or your dad's house, would that be okay? I don't think so. But anyways, it's all about the kids and the elderly, especially the women, the elderly women. Someone needs to protect them. So, and the residents that live on 13th Street, they're afraid of her. They're terrified of her. So just please help us. Thanks, you guys.
Can I address something? It's not necessarily about this, it's just a statement. My mother actually lived like a street away from that. So the time that's been, it affected my mother. I live in Lucerne, it's affected me. People have this misnomer that if it's near us, it's going to get done faster. That's not the case. There was a RV in front of my house for like 7 months. Nothing happened any faster or anything like that. So I think when people come up and say that, that's not true. So I just hope that people would realize that it doesn't happen any faster because we're supervisors. So.
Thank you.
So who is supervising her then? Who's in charge? Please. We depend on all.
Okay, we're moving on to our next public input.
Good morning. It sounds like we still have that same creaky gooseneck. Good morning. My name is Tom Slate, and I had a few thoughts to share with you that I put together last night, that I put together for a long time, but this is for this morning, and I don't have a staff or highly paid consultants or advisors, so I just do this myself. And I've titled this, If You See Something, Say Something. and it's what I was here recently about. Seems to be an increase in 911 calls, and especially vehicle accidents and falls with head injury. And I have had there's three emails, all this on one page, that exchange I had with, well, do I say madam? Anyway, with Jessica, and that will help. So if you could pass those out, you don't need to read it now. If you get around to it, it'll help fill in what I'm saying today, because I'm going to follow up on that. Because I had spoken to Supervisor Pyska, and it alludes to offering her a book called Cause Unknown that may provide clues to 911 call increases, if this is true. Simply put, she said firmly, unequivocally, no. The conversation was ended. I think it qualifies as snubbing. I've never been snubbed before. I didn't know people actually did that. It was not so much being snubbed, it was a refusal to accept the book with the information I intended to disclose. I told her it was life and death with data from life insurance companies recording hugely, I think fair to say, orders of magnitude all-cause mortality, death starting in 2021 after the experimental jabs were released. The title of the book is Cause Unknown, The Epidemic of Sudden Deaths in 2021 and 2022. I have a copy of the book here to serve to Supervisor Pyska, and asking that it be given to her unless, of course, she refuses it again. It is an easy read with many photos and easy to understand graphs. No special knowledge is needed. My concern regarding 911 calls remains. Has there been a noticeable increase in calls, especially vehicle accidents, and perhaps out of proportion, single vehicle accidents? Falls also, has there been a significant increase with head injuries? I'm wondering if loss of consciousness is playing a part, and if so, what is the cause, especially if there's now some new specific reason? We should know if there are other reasons, for example, in 911 calls such as heart and stroke and any other that show up more now than before the last 2 years. It should be determined if similar situations are occurring in other locations, at least for now, Northern California. I'm only second guessing, but it could be that this is not a topic that most people would be enthusiastic about being the one to bring to the public's attention, if it has not been done yet. And if true, I'm doing it. Whatever it is or may be going on, the public needs to know. So let's find out. Thank you. Would you deliver that to Supervisor?
Thank you, Tom. Do we have anyone else in the chambers or in the Zoom room? Okay, we have a hand.
Yeah, Rodriguez.
What?
That gentleman who spoke earlier might be in the Zoom room.
Yeah, he's in the Zoom room. Michael Rodriguez, I see your hand up, and if this is about, we have item 5.5 and 5.6 pulled, so that you will, if those are the items that you wish to speak on?
No, it's not directly with that
Okay.
item.
Okay.
It was supposed to be. It has to do with the farmland protection zone, and it
Okay,
hasn't been.
Can you pause for 1 moment and give your name, please, and then you can go on.
My name is Michael Rodriguez, and I'm with Stella Green Farms, and I fall under the farmland protection zone, which should have been included with that item, but we were all under the impression, the county, the community development department, and everybody down there doesn't know exactly what's happening as far as if there's going to be an extension to this. I talked to Michael Green yesterday, and he was looking into this item as far as what's going to happen. And there's 3 farms that have turn-in site plans, and none of us, I don't believe any of us have pulled trigger because we thought we were going to fall under this ordinance, and we are not. And right now, as of May 27, 2023, it will expire, and I don't know, and none of us know where to go from there because we can't go into temporary hoop houses, and they want us to go into these engineered greenhouses, which is, to go into that to this season, this late in the season, we would never be able to do that. So this needs to be addressed and looked at, and we don't have any direction. So can we bring it up to the attention? So these 3 farms that are caught in this ordinance, We need some direction where to go.
Is that it? Are you finished?
That is it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. If there's no other further comment, I'll check the Zoom room one more time. Then we will move on to our next item.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
there's obviously a relation to 5.5, and that is something that I am hopeful to clarify today in polling 5.5. That was one of my questions or one of my comments that I wanted to make. So I would ask that listener to stay on.
Okay. 6.2, our 907 item, Pet of the Week.
Hi, my name is Officer Copus with Lake County Animal Care Control. Today we brought Max. He's a 13-year-old neutered male terrier. He came in having seizures, and his microchip gave us his name and his age, and unfortunately his owner information was no longer current. He was seen by a veterinarian and is now on seizure medicine. Since he has been regulated on medicine, Max is a very happy camper and very alert and very happy to see us and go out for walks. He does well with other dogs and very people-friendly. We are looking for someone to give him however many years he has left. He will be on medication for the rest of his life. And if you'd like to come see him, he's at 4949 Hellbrush Drive. You can also give us a call at 707-263-0278 and meet all the other wonderful pets we have up for adoption, too.
Max has been spoken for.
No, I have to tell myself every week not to take an animal home. He is so sweet.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, item 6.3, 908, presentation of proclamation designating the week of May 20th through May 26th, 2023 as National Safe Boating Week in Lake County. Supervisor Green.
Everybody here coming up?
You.
I'll be right there in just a second. Come on.
By the looks of you, you just might be from our U.S. Coast Guard flotilla here in Lake County.
Yes, we do.
All right, so this is appropriate. I've seen you guys out on the lake myself. Proclamation designating the week of May 20th through May 26th, 2023 as National Safe Boating Week here in Lake County. Seems like the glasses might help with this. Whereas National Safe Boating Week is observed to bring attention to important life-saving information for recreational boaters so that they can have a safer, more enjoyable experience out on the water throughout the year. And whereas in the calendar year of 2021, U.S. Coast Guard statistics reveal that recreational boating fatalities decreased by 14% from the previous year. Of the 659 people who died in fatal boating-related accidents in the United States, 489 of those fatalities were due to drowning, and 399 of those boaters would be alive today if they had worn their life jackets. And whereas Lake County Flotilla has continued to provide free life jackets to youngsters by participating in community activities which promote child safety and educating the boating public in safe boating practices, and whereas Flotilla 0808 of Lake County will continue its efforts to educate the boating public by resuming safety patrols, free vessel safety checks, and to encourage boaters to practice safe boating habits and to wear your life jackets. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of the County of Lake does hereby designate the week of May 20 through May 26, 2023 as National Safe Boating Week in Lake County, and urges all users of Clear Lake, Lake Pillsbury, Blue Lakes, and Indian Valley Reservoir to safeguard their lives by wearing life jackets when boating, exercising safe boating practices, and boat responsibly. It's in capital letters here, wear your life jacket. Passed and adopted this 16th day of May 2023, signed by Jessica Pyska, Chair of the Board of Supervisors. You might have some words.
Thank you very much. I would just like to say that the Fatilla is having a free life jacket giveaway this Saturday, May 20th, at the gazebo in Liberia Park, and that children 12 years or under and with a specific weight amount will be fitted with brand new life jackets by the Fatilla members. So please stop by and see us on Saturday from 10 to 2. And thank you all for supporting the Fatilla. And we will be back on patrol, a safety patrol, since the lake now is up to where it should be. Thank you.
Thank you. And tell us a little bit, how do we find the flotilla? Many of our volunteer organizations have taken a beating after COVID. I know boating in particular, it was hard to get boats on the water and hard to get volunteers. So how do people support your organization?
Thank you very much, and I thank all of you for your time.
Website, anything, phone number? How do people find you? How do people find the flotilla?
Well, we do have a phone number, which I can't think of. It's only a message one. Right now, we're working on making brochures to pass out. Also, if you want to, you can always you can always contact me by email or my phone number, and my phone number is 707-245-4652. And you don't want to email?
That's great. I just, I'm getting out on the lake again. It is full of water. I'm a bad sailor, but, a bad sailor is better than anything else, I think. Because the lake is full, because boat traffic is up substantially over prior years, safe boating is very important. I'm very grateful to see the flotilla's ongoing activities. I'm grateful for the Sheriff's Marine Patrol. I'm grateful for all boaters who are resident in Lake County who know this lake. Let's look out for our visitors and make sure we have a safe, drowning-free season this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comment on this item? In the chambers or in the Zoom room? Our 6.4909 a.m. presentation of proclamation designating May 15th, 2023 as California Peace Officers Memorial Day and May 14th through the 20th, 2023 as National Police Week in Lake County. Supervisor Crandall and of course Sheriff and team. Yes.
Right. So before I read this proclamation, I'm just going to note the first responders event on Friday was a very moving experience, and it was very well received. There was a lot of people there, and so just wanted to highlight that we'll always remember the folks, and I'm glad that we keep that tradition going as, the law enforcement, first responders, fire departments. It's very important to remember, so just wanted to highlight that. So I'll read this proclamation designating May 15th, 2023 as California Peace Officers Memorial Day and May 14th through 20th, 2023 as National Police Week in Lake County. Whereas all of the promises America offers, none is more precious or more elusive than the right to be free from crime and violence. And whereas The dedicated men and women who have chosen law enforcement as a career face extraordinary risk and danger in preserving our freedom and security. And whereas during the week of May 14th through 20th, 2023, National Police Week is observed throughout the nation in order to recognize the hazardous work, serious responsibilities, and our strong commitment to our nation's peace officers. And whereas in conjunction with important observance, May 15th will be observed as California Peace Officers Memorial Day in commemoration of those noble officers who have tragically sacrificed their lives in the line of duty. And whereas these special observances provide all Californians with the opportunity to appreciate the heroic men and women who have dedicated their lives to preserving public safety. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of Supervisors of the County of Lake formally designates May 15th, 2023 as California Peace Officers Memorial Day in Lake County, and the week of May 14th through the 20th, 2023 as National Police Week in Lake County, and encourages all citizens to remember those individuals who gave their lives for our safety and express appreciation to those who continue to dedicate themselves to making California a safer place in which to live. Passed and adopted this 16th day of May 2023, signed Chair of the Board of Supervisors, Jessica Pieska.
Lake County Sheriff Rob Howe, thank the board for these proclamations kind of technically too. As EJ, our Supervisor Crandall mentioned, we had our Lake County First Responder Memorial Friday was very well received and very well represented by the board, so I appreciate that very much. Normally when I give a talk like this, I would talk a little bit about the dedication and the hard work and what it takes to be in law enforcement, but today is pretty easy because I'm going to go over just the last under 24 hours for Lake County SO. So we had a high-risk search warrant last night. Most of our detectives, deputies were on that, many of them at least. That in itself is inherently dangerous, stressful, takes a lot of training, knowledge, bravery, stuff the general public just probably doesn't understand on a day-to-day basis. That went well. They get to go home in the early hours of this morning, and unfortunately we got a call about 4:30 of a violent crime that had occurred in Lake County. So I get there this morning, and of course, what do you see? I see a lot of the same faces that I know were at that search warrant last night. And that's kind of what law enforcement deals with. That scenario plays itself out every day in law enforcement. And there wasn't a citizen there that knows that happened because no one showed that. I was very much proud of them. Their professionalism, their dedication to get there, do that. The reason the citizens don't know that is because they weren't complaining or whining about it. They're just doing their job and doing their job well. And most of those things, again, as I said, they play out every day, but they go unnoticed and they go unappreciated. So that's why this week, this day is important to law enforcement. It gives us that opportunity to thank those men and women who do this job and to honor those men and women who gave their lives doing this job. So thank you, Board.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Anyone else? No?
Strong silent text.
All right, I'll give them that. That's what it is. All right, anybody from the public want to say anything? Any Board of Supervisors? Supervisor Sabatier? Sorry, Jessica, this is your job. I'm
Not unnoticed and not unappreciated. I know that there's something that I did that I didn't feel bad about it, but I wondered why I wasn't doing it for everybody. After the 2015 fires, where the Rocky Fire got a little close for comfort for the city of Clear Lake, it became automatic to wave and say thank you to fire trucks as they were passing by, and I know I've decided that that's what I need to do every time I see a first responder. I notice you. I recognize that you're out there and you're putting your life on the line to make sure that our communities are safe, and I hope that others can do the same, because being recognized and being seen is part of the job that should happen. We shouldn't only see you when we need you. We should see you all the time. You're out there. I see you. You were at an accident earlier this morning, or at least law enforcement was, and you guys are needed, and you definitely have our support, at least my support. I'll speak for that.
We.
Yes.
We.
I figured that was comfortable enough to say that.
Tom Slade, once again. I listen to the scanner 911 calls, and I have for years. And I don't know if things have gotten worse, but I would certainly like to give all of you credit because I hear some of the calls you go on, and I say, just as a layperson, there's a lot of very unhinged people out there, and some of the things that are described that people go out and deal with. So thank you. Just thank you. That's all I have to say.
Anybody else? And I'll just say too, one of the things that people don't think about, and I know as a veteran, when you're in a country and you're deployed, people spit on you, people throw things at you, people say mean things to you, like really bad things, and they put you in a position to feel in danger. And I know you deal with that as well, because I've watched things happen on the rancherias, things happen in the community where they do the same things. They spit on you all, they do these things, and you have to just kind of like deal with it. And it's a split decision sometimes, and it's hard as humans to deal with this stuff. So I commend you for what you do, and I just wanted to make sure people know these type of things, because it's very hard to deal with as human beings. So,
Thank you. Proclamation.
oh, great.
It's in his pocket.
Oh, great.
Almost took down the California flag.
All right, great. Okay. You got it? One more. Okay, cool. We got it. Yay.
Our 6.5, 9:10 a.m. item, presentation of proclamation of recognition of the 130-year-old Community Methodist Church in Middletown, California. Vice Chair Simon.
Join? You want to watch the video?
Yes.
Okay, we do have a slideshow.
Okay.
I'm Boris Brumfield, the lay pastor here at the Middletown Community United Methodist Church. With me is Claudia Listman, the past pastor. She was a former pastor, and one of our members who is our sunshine person for our church, Sheila Rosano. And we have a slideshow. Slideshow. There we go. Oops. Backward. Okay. So in 1857, the Methodist Episcopal Church was first established, and the church was built on the Gwinnett site adjacent to what is now Hidden Valley Lake, because that's where the town was. And in 1861, Lake County was established. In 1871, Middletown as a community was deeded, and the town moved from the Gwinnett site to Middletown as we know it, and a simple church was built by the Methodists. In 1881, Middletown's population had grown to 8,000, and then in 1889 and 1893, land was donated and purchased from the Armstrong Ranch at Armstrong and Washington Streets, and plans were drawn for a permanent stone church. The old wooden church needed to be moved temporarily while the new church was being built. So it was moved to a spot that's near Central Park, where we have the Middletown Days events, and it was pulled on rollers by a mule team. An accounts state that it was stalled in the road for 3 weeks, and folks had to go around that old church. New stones for the structure were quarried east of Middletown, out Butts Canyon Road, and carried by horse-drawn wagons to the building site. So here you have the church in 1913. as well as the parsonage, which is to the left, the two-story parsonage, and on the second floor is where they had Sunday school classes. And this is the church today. Still here, still serving. And that's a photograph from the early 1900s inside the church. And I think a memorial was being held. I know that my Redeemer lives. And here is the church, the sanctuary today. In 1967, the foundation was laid for our social hall building. And there is our social hall today, where services are still held serving the community. And there's part of our congregation. Yes. So you're invited to join the activities on Sundays, Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, which include our scripture and New Life service on Sundays. We have community meals. Free community meals are served on Mondays and Thursdays from 5 to 6:30. Not on this list is the food distribution that we do on the third Wednesday of the month in conjunction with Catholic Charities. We have a women's thrift shop that serves the community from Monday through Thursday from noon to 4. We have AA meetings that are held at our church Mondays and Fridays at 7 p.m. And that's a few of the things that go on there. You serve this county. All of our jobs are in service. The animal control is in service. The sheriff's in service. All of us serve. We serve this community because we care. And we give thanks to those who work to serve the community, and we give thanks to those who receive our services. Praising God. Amen. Come on down, Moga. Oh, and we had preschool classes there, as a matter of fact, at the Middletown Community United Methodist Church. And one of my preschool students is here on the Board of Supervisors. Sweet little Moke Simon. Yes.
Little Mo.
Yes.
Come on up. Come up. Please. I love that story, Boris. I tell it as often as I can, too, so
Yeah.
thank you very much.
You
Okay.
were 4 and I was 14.
Yeah, okay. Board of Supervisors, County of Lake, State of California proclamation. Recognition of the 130-year-old Community Methodist Church in Middletown, California. Whereas the Methodist Episcopal Church was first established in Lake County in 1857, and the first church was built on the Gwinnett Town site now adjacent to Hidden Valley. In 1871, Middletown was deeded and the town moved there. A simple wooden church with a tall, thin steeple was built by the Methodists. There were just 3 ranch houses in the area when the first church was built and valued at $600. And whereas by 1876, average attendance was 35 people, and by 1881, Middletown had grown to a population of 8,000, with the social life of most people centered around the church. Whereas the church grew and prospered, plans were made to replace the wooden structure with a permanent stone church. Between 1889 and 1892, land was both donated and purchased from what was then the Armstrong Ranch at the corners of Washington and Armstrong. The old church was moved to the Bell Farmer Place near Central Park, whilst the stone church was under construction. And whereas the stones for the new building were cut and shaped at the old quarry east of Middletown and carted in a horse-drawn wagon to the building site. The architect was Benjamin D. Price from Lansdowne, Pennsylvania. The contractor was A.H. Gunning, and the mason was Henry Klein. The cost of the new stone building was $655, paid in installments. Later records indicate the cost at $1,500.26 plus labor. And whereas the cornerstone was set in 1893, which included a copper box with the following prayer: "May God prosper the work, and when completed, may it long stand to be a blessing on this land. Many souls be converted, many believers sanctified and made holy within its walls. We hope to meet many of these in heaven. Amen. The Middletown Community Methodist Stone Church is the oldest church serving the community. The structure is in need of stabilization and significant repairs. That's what brings us here today with the proclamation and the recognition. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Lake County Board of Supervisors does hereby recognize the historic importance and relevance of the Community Methodist Church, and that was begun 130 years ago, and supports preservation efforts undertaken by the members and the community of the historic churches, or the historic structure, I apologize, passed and adopted this 16th day.
But I also spent most of my childhood in this church, too. So this letter, Dear Supervisors, during our meeting on May 13th, the Lake County Historical Society Board approved this letter of support for the historical significance of the Middletown Methodist Church. In addition to being one of the oldest churches in Lake County, this structure served as the hub of Middletown culture and society during the late 1800s and into the present. The original wooden church shows up on 1890 Sandbird Insurance Agency map of Middletown. The newly constructed stone church is depicted on the 1911 Middletown map. The Lake County Historical Society considers the Middletown Methodist Stone Church one of the most impressive and beautiful in Lake County. Thank you for your consideration, Dr. John Parker. Wait, I'm coming down.
Come on down. Jessica was baptized there, and like she said, she spent her youth there.
There, okay, got everybody. Okay. Wait, EJ. Yeah, got you. Okay. 2, 3. Let me try that. Yes.
Okay.
Yay. Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you, sweetheart.
So, Voris, just a quick comment. I don't want to get into a discussion just because of the limitations. I would say spend a little bit of time with Director Turner, who has reopened the Heritage Committee. I know we're looking for more people to take part, and I'm guessing that there may be some potential avenues if the Heritage Committee looks into buildings such as this, and what grants might be available at the state level to help. So.
Thank you. The Public Services Director I've been working with Lars regarding rejuvenating the Heritage Commission for that exact purpose, for taking a look at preservation of historical structures, maybe working up a policy to present to the board that would then allow those property owners to access grant funds.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Do we have any other members from the public who wish to speak on this item in the chambers or in the Zoom room? I'm not seeing any. Okay.
Sorry, Lars. Forgot.
Our next item, 6.6, 9:11 a.m., presentation of proclamation recognizing May 2023 as Mental Health Matters Month in Lake County. Supervisor Spatier and our Behavioral Health Services team.
Come on up. Sorry, my OCD kicked in. It wasn't quite in the corner. So this is for Mental Health Matters Month. Society is complicated. It has gotten very complicated. In many ways, we've moved forward, thank goodness, and we've evolved in the way that we talk to each other, treat each other. However, things have gotten complicated where a lot of people need help. A lot of people need a friend. A lot of people need assistance in dealing with what our society has. While we think that we've created more ways to communicate, in many more ways, we've created many ways to be more isolated as well. With me up here, we have a lot of people who participate in behavioral health services that are provided to the folks that need it the most, and this is what this is about. This proclamation recognizes May 2023 as Mental Health Matters Month in Lake County to enhance public awareness of mental health and dispel the stigma surrounding it. Whereas, every day, millions of people face stigma related to mental illness, causing many to face their mental health challenges for years without help. Each May, Mental Health Matters Month provides the opportunity for everyone to come together to illuminate mental health awareness in an effort to stop the stigma. Bringing forth this awareness is crucial to helping people reach out for the assistance they deserve. And whereas, mental health challenges are one of the most common health conditions in California, affecting 1 out of 6 adults and impacting both the person experiencing mental health challenges and those persons who care and love the person facing those challenges. And whereas 1 out of every 24 Californians with a serious mental illness have difficulty functioning in everyday life, and if left untreated, have life expectancies 25 years shorter than the general population. Every day, millions of people face stigma related to mental health and may feel isolated and alone, going years before receiving any help. And whereas recovery can and does happen, and all Californians should know that support and help is available regardless of anyone's individual's situation. Creating a community where everyone feels comfortable reaching out for the support they deserve is crucial to ending the stigma around mental health. Access to support and ending the stigma is of paramount importance. Lake County Behavioral Health Services wishes to enhance public awareness of mental health and reduce stigma associated with mental illness. Now therefore be it resolved by the Lake County Board of Supervisors, thereof concurring that the Lake County Behavioral Health Services hereby recognizes May 2023 as Mental Health Matters Month in Lake County to enhance public awareness of mental health to help end the stigma. Passed and adopted the 16th day of May 2023 and signed by our Chair of the Board.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Elise Jones. I'm the Deputy Director of Administration for Lake County Behavioral Health Services. As an effort to dispel stigma around mental health, I'd like to let you all know that I have several mental health conditions myself. I'm a person with lived experience, so that includes post-traumatic stress disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, and major depressive disorder. And yet here I am. Now, mental illness is something like many other chronic health conditions, such as diabetes, which I also have. You get a laugh, right? But they don't go away. You manage them. And so sometimes it's easier, sometimes it's harder. And recovery looks different for everybody. I'm very thankful to work for this incredible department, for these staff that put their heart and their soul into this work. And nobody for our department, and I can say that with certainty, does this money for the money, or does this work for the money. You don't go into social work or mental health for any other reason than a true desire to help people. And I know that to be true. I started my career in mental health about 15 years ago. And at that point, I saw the dire need in all of our communities in our nation and the world for access to mental health, and also the intense stigma that surrounded accessing services for mental health. As I look into the future of our department and I see the amazing folks that are doing this work, as well as the monolithic transition that is taking place within the mental health delivery system at the state level and nationally, I'm really encouraged, and I can't wait to see where this department goes and how we continue to grow to support our community members who are struggling and need assistance. So if you are, we are here, and please reach out.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, this is better.
Do we have anyone in the chambers or in the Zoom room that would like to speak on this item? Come on up. You can state your name and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Sheila Rosenow. Okay, thank you. My name's Sheila Rosenow, and I used to work for these wonderful people, and I just wanted to say thank you. I know firsthand experience how each and every one of you, how hard you work and how dedicated you are. And you're still pushing, and I love it. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. And thank you, Stephen Carter, for being at the helm of the department. It's a wonderful department. Thank you. I was deputy director. I was always at the bridge. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the chambers or in the Zoom room? Okay, thank you so much for joining us today. Okay, our next item, 6.7, 9:15 a.m., presentation on discharge of accountability. We have our treasurer tax collector, Patrick Sullivan, and our auditor, controller, county clerk, Genevieve Harrington. Come on up.
Thank you, Board, for the opportunity to present here today. Patrick Sullivan, Treasurer Tax Collector.
Rachel Mathias, I'm the Collection Supervisor.
Microphone. Pull it close to you.
Genevieve Harrington, Auditor Controller, County Clerk.
It's alive. So we can provide some background on this item and why we wanted to bring it to your board's attention. Typically with debt programs throughout counties, whether it's court collections or tax, counties regularly go through a discharge of accountability where debt's reviewed under certain criteria in the government code. We reference that in the memo here. It's Government Code 25257. But the gist of it is we're looking at whether amounts are too small to justify the cost of collection, whether the likelihood of collection does not warrant the expense involved, or the amount thereof has been otherwise lawfully compromised or adjusted. There's been a lot happening in this field, particularly in court collections over the last several years. A lot of it has to do with changes in state law. The legislature has made a lot of different adjustments to court-ordered debt, the way fines and fees work, and the way and manner in which counties can collect them. Generally speaking, it's greatly restricted the ability of counties to actually collect on that debt. A lot of fines and fees have been waived. There's entire classes that have basically been removed. And that's what our staff has spent a significant amount of time over the last few years working on. Our original inventory, if we were to look back just last year, was approximately $44 million in court-ordered debt that was owed. That's been reduced nearly $10 million to about $32 million. That's because of legislative changes. Those are fines and fees that are no longer eligible to be collected on. And that's what Rich and others in our office have had to spend a great deal of their time doing. Where we're at now is we're beginning to look at other types of debt. Now that we've finished removing those statutorily mandated fines and fees that need to go, we need to start doing that analysis that is in that government code I referenced. Here, we haven't gone through this process as far as we're aware in an extended period of time. A lot of the court, perhaps never, yeah. We're going back to the original court cases that came into our system, and we're observing that a lot of them are, even though they came into our system in 2006, let's say, a lot of them can be from the decades prior to that. So we have an enormous span of cases, going back easily into the 90s and early 2000s. That's the latest one? Okay. So that's where our analysis is on court-ordered debt. That's the route we're going down on that front. We're just want to let the board know that we are looking into this. The way the process works here in Lake County is that Our office begins an initial review. We start identifying cases that meet the criteria for discharge. At that point, as we batch these together, whether it's court-ordered debt or ultimately we're going to be doing this with other tax and county debt programs, we then take it to the auditor controller's office where they will do their own analysis of what we're looking at. I don't know if Genevieve, you wanted to speak to that at all?
I mean, I would just really reinforce what's written in the memo. I did do an evaluation, and I do have extensive experience with this process, and what they're doing is exactly what they need to do. The approach is correct. The majority of the 7 million you see here is going to be past statute. We should not be touching it anyway. So, yeah. I mean, as far as the evaluation, I do agree with this, and I would recommend that we discharge this. So.
And I think the final point to raise all this is that whenever we're working with the auditor controller's office on bringing a potential discharge forward, a lot of what we're looking at is what success we've had collecting on either a court-ordered debt or a tax program. If we have tried repeatedly and failed on collecting on that debt, that's a major reason for us to ultimately do the discharge. The discharge does, it removes the accountability from the office to try to collect on it. Some of these debts, I mean, we don't actually have enough staff capacity to try to collect on everything going back 40 or
Well, and when you
50
report,
years.
it inflates the amount that it looks like you should be collecting and you're not. It reduces the percentage, and so it's not an accurate reflection of what you can do. It's inaccurate information when you do your state reporting.
And I would say, Rich, you can speak to this. My understanding is the court has been anxiously awaiting us to do this.
Yeah, the court has, since I've been here now 4.5 years doing this, and the court, since my time, has expressed interest in doing this in order to meet state standards. Beside it being a best practice for collection agency of court-ordered debt, it does enable us to meet the benchmarks when we're doing regular discharge of accountability. It really ultimately should be something that we do on a yearly basis, and right now we're basically just catching up for the duration of the program. So statutorily, we were granted this ability by the legislature in 2010. As Patrick did note, our department has not done this since it's been allowed.
And I think if you do it annually, it'll be a much smaller dollar amount once you have that process in place. And we've talked about it, all the levels that it would go through before it got to the discharge, but you won't be seeing these types of numbers if it's done annually.
And that's a large part of it across all programs. Normally, typically, cities, counties, and other agencies are doing these discharges across all their debt programs annually. So in these early years, we're just going to be doing repeated batches with the auditor controller, trying to get through these and get caught up. And at some point, this just becomes routine. We just wanted to bring it to your board's attention because it's a new process here, but it is not a new process statewide. And I think we're happy to answer any questions you may have about how we're approaching this program.
Supervisor Spatier?
Yeah, just two questions. One, are we seeing an increase in court-ordered debts as the years continue moving forward, or are we seeing a decrease?
So court-ordered debt is actually decreasing. It's hard to pinpoint a number of what that decrease will be, but court fines generally are going down. The state is moving from a revenue model in court-ordered debt collection to a resolution model, and I think that would further lower the revenues being brought in as we go forward, especially as our court onboards with the ability to pay program.
Okay, thank you for that.
I would also add that it's a little skewed the last few years. It can be hard to follow the statistics because of COVID. COVID led to delays in filing, and there can still be backlogs within the court, and there's still the ability for the DA to continue to file on cases that are from prior years. So I don't know in the last several years if we can, how much we can read into the stats, but I would completely agree the trend is downward.
That's good. And then my second question is, do you have a mechanism for collecting those debts versus just allowing the time to pass where eventually it just comes back to us for forgiving the debts or dumping the debts?
So all court-ordered debt, when it becomes delinquent with the court, it does get sent down to us. We do an active collection process. Usually, if just on an example, if they're not paying, it would stay in our office for about 6 months as we attempt to collect that. After that, it goes to the Franchise Tax Board for collection. And the Franchise Tax Board in the court order debt field is really the big player in this. They're the ones that have all the power to garnish wages and levy bank accounts. So generally, if we don't collect it, the Franchise Tax Board will collect it if it's collectible. Generally, if all things are equal, the Franchise Tax Board holds on to the debt for about 2 to 3 years. At that point, it would go out to our third-party collector. But realistically, once that point is reached, that's probably 4 to 5 fiscal years past the violation. That debt is increasingly uncollectible as it goes on. And that third-party collector does play an important role in it, but what they bring in revenue is very low in relation to the rest of our court-ordered debt collection.
I'm glad you mentioned the Franchise Tax Board. Just glad that it's not continuously on your shoulders to try to collect that, and that you have an easy way out to pass it on to the next one with, as you stated, with more power to collect. So, thank you.
Supervisor Green?
Yeah, thank you. I know today's item is focused on court-ordered debt, but there's other forms of debt that may have similar collectability issues, and certainly support this review process. Kind of alarming it didn't happen before, but you know, life goes on in a good way here. But this is a big chunk of change for court-ordered debt. If we're to take a look at the other bad debt categories that your office is incurring, do you have any ballpark figures on that, or are we going to be bringing a similar item forward to address debt that is not court-ordered?
So we're going to be certainly going through this process with unsecured debt over time. Unsecured debt is something, unsecured property tax debt is something our office is definitely going to need to look into. As the years go by, our tools become increasingly limited to deal with that. That's probably one of the primary categories. Some of the other categories have their own built-in mechanisms, like occupancy tax. Depending on the type of tax, you may or may not even need to do a discharge. But unsecured property tax is definitely a field we'd be looking at on this. Going forward, I mean, unless your board found it helpful, we can advise when we're going to be looking at certain programs. But typically, we would just do this in smaller batches where, as we review certain batches of debt, we'd be pulling out the ones that meet the criteria, working with the auditor controller to review whether they meet the discharge of accountability guidelines.
And that's a process that's already ongoing, already established. So the court-ordered debt discharge, that's going to be a new thing for this office, but you already have a process.
It is now.
Across all these programs, we're beginning it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Baby steps. $9 million in baby steps. Thank you.
Thank you for taking this on and bringing it to us.
Absolutely.
And we look forward to perhaps future presentations. Do we have any questions or comments or input in the chambers or in the Zoom room? And I am not seeing any. So if there's no...
Thank you for the cleanup.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Sure. Come on up for public input.
This is Michael Wegner, and I had a quick question for Mr. Sullivan. And I don't even know if this is relevant, but it's been something that my office has been dealing with. I think it's called the PPEs that are being granted for companies that were operating through COVID, which basically applies to all W-2 employees for the company.
So this, I think you could probably ask him that offline, because this is a very particular item that has to do with
It just
these
might be
old
relevant
past
to the
debts.
discharge of debt as well. But
You can maybe connect with him in the lobby.
Definitely.
Okay, thank you so much. Our next timed item is 10:15. So we can go on to our,
Just take a break.
you want to take a break? Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break back here at 9:10.
Marie is here. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, welcome back. Our next item, 7.2, consideration of resolution of the Lake County Board of Supervisors, State of California, electing not to list supporters and opponents for county, city, district, and school measures on future county ballots. And we have Maria Valadez from our Registrar of Voters to come up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Maria Valadez, Registrar of Voters Office, or Registrar of Voters, sorry. So my item that I'm presenting today, Assembly Bill 1416 was passed by state legislature last year, which with an effective date of January 1st of this year, adding a requirement that all statewide measures list supporters and opponents of measures on our ballots. The bill gives counties the option of opting out or printing the list of supporters and opponents for local measures, which include cities, schools, and districts. The list could potentially include names of associations, nonprofit organizations, businesses, individuals taken from the signers of the arguments in favor or against. Opting into, in my opinion, this will result in cost increases for ballot production, printing, and postage. It would also increase the length of our ballot and potentially the number of cards. Currently, we do a 2-page ballot, 8.5 by 14, and it could extend into a 3-card ballot for voters. One of the other things that I believe could also be a problem would be that it would increase the possibility for electioneering and promotion of candidates. So somebody in favor or against a measure could have their name in addition to their name on the ballot. Elections Code Section 9117 was added, allowing for a mechanism for opting out of printing the list of these supporters and opponents. We have the option of at least 30 days before the board. I would come to the board and ask for permission each election, or we do one time by adopting this resolution and not printing them at all for any elections, for local elections. Majority of our California counties have already opted out of this requirement, and a lot of those that haven't done it have indicated that they will come before their board to request to do the same thing. In conclusion, I recommend that the attached resolution be adopted to opt out of listing the supporters and opponents for the ballot measures, for local ballot measures. I did reach out to all the districts, sent them information letting them know that this was being placed on the agenda today, and didn't hear any negative feedback on it.
Okay, thank you.
Questions?
Do we have questions from the board? Supervisor Green?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for appearing here today. Always good to see election staff here. Just very briefly, and we discussed this in advance, this bill was supported widely in the legislature where it was passed. You can actually look up in the legislative reports who supports and opposes certain legislative bills, but it takes a little digging sometimes. This transparency measure, as it applies to state ballot measures, was widely supported by both generally some Democratic Party organizations, but also several nonpartisan organizations. And most importantly, at the time this bill was passed, there was no opposition received from anybody, including any Republican Party or stuff like that. This was a clean transparency bill, and to the extent that we are here today based on some guidance or requests from the California Association of Clerks and Election Officials, they didn't register that opposition when this bill came up. I understand the concerns raised in the staff report. I don't agree with any of them. I think there's some speculation as to the potential costs. I think there's definitely speculation as to the potential for electioneering or chicanery as it's billed here. And I just wanted to register those comments before I record my no vote. Thank you.
May I respond to a couple of things? So in the CACIO, or association, you know, there's so many bills that come before the legislative committee on the association. So there's so many laws that are trying to be imposed upon the elections. So I believe that their role play is to look at those bills that are going to be more affecting our elections, where we have to oppose those right away, where this one gave the option of coming to the board and asking to opt out. So it was one that we would have some kind of an option. You know, if we don't have options, obviously the committee would have probably submitted a letter of opposition for the majority of us that are coming before the board asking for that request. The expenses, they do cost more. You know, postage is going, we have to not only pay for outgoing postage, but we'll have to be paying for return postage. So anybody that votes, the county is paying for, you know, the county and those districts having elections would be paying for those costs. So there is additional costs. And the postage, you know, like we know, everything is increasing. Our ballots from 2020 were a little under 80,000, and now this last year they were over 90,000. So costs do go up.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
Do we have any comments from the public? Any public input? And I'm not seeing any in the Zoom room, so I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Just a final.
Sure.
Just a final statement. I have no issues with moving forward with the recommended action. I think that we're used to seeing websites and other type of links advertised within the statements that we receive already. Very accessible, very easily found, and to me it doesn't change the activity of voting. And I think that the integrity of the election process is not taken away by doing this. I think this is definitely becoming convoluted. And just the fact of how do we fit that in, what do we choose? Like at that point, you have kind of certain liabilities that you create for yourself when you make some of those decisions. So I think taking that away and just allowing people to take that next step and follow that link for whatever it is that you want to see, who supports it, who doesn't support it. We need to do our homework when we're reviewing these election ballots. And so thank you for bringing this, and I'm ready to move forward.
So on a note on that, so the statements, the supporters and opponents, when they do their statements, that gets printed in the state booklet. So it's already there, which is mailed to every voter. The local voter information guide also, when there's measures and somebody supports it or opposes it, their names are noted there. So, and we do post what we can for the measures on our local website, and we have a link for the state propositions. Now, in addition to not only printing, we also, for the office, we have to have ADA compliant ballot, which we have to also make sure that it's available to the accessible, the people with accessibility disability. So we have to also, that'll be additional work for us too, to, you know, have to add these to this and read it and record the audio for it as well. So it's more work for our office as well.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if we're ready, I offer the resolution.
I think we have another comment.
And I just want to say, I appreciate the concerns, but the reason this bill happened, I remember when I was still on council, one of the most conservative member there, we don't agree on anything, but we both agree that notwithstanding the ready accessibility of campaign materials and what have you, at the state level certainly, and to some extent possibly at the local level, when ballot measures come on, they can have titles that may not be entirely transparent in the purpose of the legislation. Yeah, you can send out one sample ballot to one household, but it doesn't necessarily get bandied about to all the individual voters in that household. And these costs are reimbursable, right? So We don't do elections on the cheap. We take whatever money is necessary to put this out there, and we give the best information. The legislature, in its wisdom, without any opposition, said for state ballot measures at least, we're going to add some information to the ballot itself. So as a last refuge, if they didn't read the sample ballot, if they didn't get all the campaign materials, they can see who supports or opposes this measure and use that information in real time when they cast their ballot. So again, I think, I want to be cognizant, I want to agree. I believe in a bipartisan sense, this is good for all people, all voters, if we were to follow likewise at the local level. I certainly respect anyone who disagrees with that, but I just don't see any real potential for major cost increments based on following the state law, and I don't see any great need, any urgent need, other than the recommendation of the state and our ROV to opt out of this. You already offered the resolution, and I'm ready to go. Thank you.
Can I clarify?
But each voter gets a sample.
So I'd like to clarify. So this resolution is for local measures. For state measures, we are required to add the list of the supporters and opponents. It's only for the local measures, and each voter gets a voter information guide for their own, for themselves. It's the state one that goes out to, usually to the household. But again, it's the resolution I'm submitting before you is for just local measures.
It says here for county, city districts, school districts, all those things.
Yeah, and the state ones, we will still be required to put that information in the book, in the ballot.
Okay. Action?
Madam Chair, I offer the resolution.
Supervisor Simon?
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Aye.
Supervisor Crandall?
Aye.
Supervisor Green?
No.
And Supervisor Pyska?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, 6.8, 10:15 a.m., consideration of presentation of Lake County Food Production Program, concept with potential direction to staff. Supervisor Sabatier.
So I'm going to actually, I'll try to do it, Johanna. I'm joining Zoom. Nope, I got it. If you can give me 1 second to get on, I apologize. Wasn't thinking of sharing screens. And I can't talk and do this at the same time because that's a very difficult task. All right, there it is. All right, thank you very much. This is something that I've been thinking about for quite a while. And it was funny, on the first, I think it was the first month that Supervisor Crandall and I got here, we got the crop report, which was kind of reminiscent of Trading Places, and I got really exciting that I got the crop report. But I've been really into reading the crop report and seeing what our trends are, where we're going with it. And food has always been something that I feel has been kind of missing from our crop report that our ag commissioner has always been bringing to us. We have a lot of ag activity. We're a county that's known for the ag opportunities that we have and the ag business that we have here locally. But again, when I look around for, can I find enough to create dinner? Can I find enough to create meals? Can I find enough to live off of sustainably, and we have limited resources here when it comes to food. This has gone through different iterations of how can we go about creating more food production or incentivizing more food production. And some puzzle pieces finally fell together in the right place. And I think also I'm part of the NACO Economic Mobility Leadership Network. My visit to Florida and Palm Beach and seeing what they're doing in their agriculture over there triggered some thoughts. Going through the Ag Venture triggered some thoughts. And then my meeting and conversations with Blue Zones kind of sealed those thoughts. And so let me go ahead and get started here. So our ag stats, going back to 2004, and again, thank you for all the crop reports that are available online, our vegetable crops were at 50 acres, wine grapes 7,000, pears 2,500, walnuts 2,700, cattle about 4,000. And you'll notice in 2021, all the general food crops reduced. Vegetable crops are at 7.52 acres, down 85%. Our pears are down 42% to almost 1,500 acres. Walnuts are a bit of an anomaly. I know that the industry itself is struggling to be able to make it economically, but there are some walnut farmers that still remain. So that one says an increase of 30% from 2004, but I would say in the recent years, it's definitely dropped off quite a bit. Then you look at our cattle and calves, and it's also dropped by more than 61%. And in comparison, we see wine grapes go up 46%, but we know wine grapes aren't not the table grapes that you would eat. Those get turned into wine. And then, of course, I did not mention cannabis, since that's not in our crop reports, but we've had a large increase in that, which I don't even know you could put a percentage, since it went from 0 to something. And so that kind of shares the concern of sustainability-wise for Lake County. I'm thinking things like climate change issue, where every meeting that I go to at the state or around the nation, food scarcity is a topic that consistently gets shared and talked about. And food scarcity is based on the idea that if there's a horrible weather pattern that affects our bread baskets, where the majority of our food is grown and comes from, such as the Central Valley, that there will be food scarcity, and how are we going to be able to survive those food scarcity moments? Are we competitive enough to ensure that we can bring in food to our grocery stores and people continue to eat? Or what can we work on to be self-sustainable so that we can make sure to help ourselves? So here's also some health stats, food environment, food insecurity. I put adult obesity there. These all come from the community health needs assessments from 2019. And just to show food insecurity, Lake County is at a score of 17, when the rest of California is 11.7. And that's dealing mostly with poverty and access to food. Food environment is the number of choices, the ease of access and choice. And Lake County is also below in that one and up above in food insecurity. Obesity, we're actually doing really well. Well, I wouldn't say we're doing well, but in comparison to others, we're doing well. So how do we get to where I feel we should be, where there's more food being produced, and what can the county do? So we've tried this before in probably more than one iteration that I'm aware of, but I definitely know of one iteration that started in, I think, the early 2010s or something like that. I started my meetings with farmers saying I would love to see more farmers to create more food, and I kind of got an awesome answer of that won't help. Flip your script. Start looking at the demand, not the supply. If we create more supply, our farmers are struggling because the demand is not easily accessible out there. And so work on the demand. The demand will create a higher incentive for farmers to expand or farmers to start. And that's where Blue Zones came in. When I met with Blue Zones, loved their model. Just a brief description of Blue Zones. Blue Zones has been studying the world where people live long, happy, and healthy lives. And they've figured out kind of the 9 pillars of what should be done in order for you to have that type of potential life expectancy and happiness and so on and so forth. And food is definitely a part of that. And they've been doing a great work in connecting with our food markets, such as our grocery stores, our restaurants, our hospitals, our schools. Not all of them are necessarily markets, but food delivery. And when I looked at their pledge, I asked them, what exactly are we pledging, or what exactly are stores pledging to when they pledge a Blue Zone certification? And I didn't see buy local food as being one of their primary things that they're looking for them to do. Well, Blue Zones has the idea that the healthy choice should be the first choice. And to me, local food is the healthy choice, and so that should be the first choice. If a restaurant is looking for food and they're Blue Zone certified, or a hospital, they should be looking at a local distributor for local food, rather than going directly to Cisco and looking at a national or international model of accessing food. And so they actually like the idea, and this is something that they will be working on and implementing so that we can go ahead and have the stores that are current. I mean, we have the Saw Shop, we have Canocta Unified School District. I think every school district except for one is working towards Blue Zone certification. We have Adventist Health, we have Foods, et cetera, and there's more and more and more that are being worked on to create these models. And so the demand will be increasing. Then the distribution. So I've met with NCO, who runs the Mendo Lake Food Hub. I'm not here to necessarily advertise and advocate for their program, but their program exists. Let's not create something that already exists. If something new happens to open up because the demand is there, great, awesome, let's see what we can create. But there is one distribution locally that already exists, and so met with them, and they're looking to be prepared for the expansion based on local farmers selling them their goods and markets purchasing directly from them. So then that comes to farmers. So far, I haven't really touched as to what Lake County can do, but farmers have a threshold that is difficult to overcome. Farmers economically have constantly struggled. If you look at our crop numbers, that explains everything. Not saying, I think wine grapes have changed a lot over the years, not saying wine grapes are highly economical. You'd have to have a lot of acres. You have to have a large model to go by. But farmers, you can see the number of vegetables being grown has decreased because it is not economically viable. It's not as simple as you would like, as we would all like it to be, and farming is super important, food is super important, and so on. So what if there were market incentives, or what if there were Lake County incentives? So the market incentives obviously is the demand. We can create that, that's going to be happening. What can the county do to incentivize more farmers to start farming food and becoming a part of this food program? And so we have a lot of land that is tax defaulted that we're constantly talking about and not quite sure what to do with. It's possible we can buy some of that land. It's possible to lease some of that land at nominal fees so that we can have almost like a farming incubator. And these are just ideas. These are not things that need to happen. There's the potential for doing a sort of property tax reduction if you're part of a local food production program, similar to what the Williamson Act was, but something more locally. And again, if you get those incentives, you'd be part of this program, you'd use a local distribution agency, and that local distribution would be selling to our local markets that are making that first and priority to buy local. So these are just ideas of how we can get more food farming to occur, and the arrow key is not going to help since it's a scroll. And so some of the results, if we can make these things happen, is increased food production, which helps us be more sustainable during emergencies, during crisis, during whatever, and even a normal day. Great to have local food. It increases our health metrics. We constantly talk about our health metrics. Part of the reason Blue Zones is here is to help us with our health metrics. Having access, easy access to healthy food, local food, has that ability to increase our health metrics. Bigger and better farmers markets. We know at farmers markets that those that are on CalFresh can double their dollars and purchase more. We have a large population who has access to that subsidy. Decreased food insecurity. We have a high level, as I noted in our community health needs assessment, a high level of food insecurity. By having more access to healthy food and food itself, we can decrease that. It creates entrepreneurship, employment opportunities, and it can help us become a more sustainable county. So the results are all positive. We have many partners. Not all of them are listed here, but obviously Blue Zones, I think, helps us with the demand. NCO has the ability to help us with distribution. Good Farm Fund has been helping our local farms. I don't want to say all local farms, but some local farms in Lake County and Mendocino with grant opportunities that they've been helpful through the COVID crisis as well. Then I met with Red Cross, which we had an amazing conversation, and I appreciate Red Cross being in the room today. When I traveled to Hawaii, to Maui, And in Maui, and Blue Zones happened to be there for this grand opening, Maui did exactly what I'm kind of discussing. They purchased 400 acres of land, they leased it to local farmers. The local farmers then were able to use the local government to create a co-op processing plant to package their food, and then they're selling their food, and Hawaiian Airlines is about to use 40% of their entire food from that local farm that the public-private partnership has created. Red Cross has said they've worked on things like this before in the past, and they're looking to get me involved in having a conversation with their national team to see what's possible in creating something like that here. The Farm Bureau is excited about this. Our Ag Commissioner and I have had conversations about this. Obviously, great interest. UC Extension, Clemson is our part of UC Extension for farming diversity, and he's interested in the topic, and Lake County EDC, who does a lot of work with USDA and others, is also interested because of the potential of jobs and the potential of economic development that comes along with it. And so today, I'm asking not to approve an idea that has yet to be formulated in a very concrete way, but looking to move forward with something that used to be in existence a while ago, and that was our Food Policy Committee. I'd like to reactivate that. What's wonderful is Blue Zones is offering to be the lead agency for this committee, so we wouldn't be asking our directors to take the lead, create agendas, organize the meetings, and if approved by the board, to move forward with the Food Policy Committee being reactivated on June 6th, which I think is our first meeting in June. I would come back with a consideration of a new composition of what that committee looks like. That committee would be charged with finalizing the food program policy and come back to the Board of Supervisors to see if this is something that we would like to be a part of, and see if we can roll this out. And that is a very, hopefully, brief attempt at expressing some of the work that I've been working on and what I am excited to bring to the Board of Supervisors today.
Okay. Any comments from the board? Supervisor Green?
Yeah, I want to thank you for bringing it forward. It's interesting. For me, it has two main elements, and one is food insecurity and the ability of people to get, good, healthy food. And but it also has to do with business modeling and increasing sustainability of our local economy, creating opportunities for our local growers. But the first slide, where you showed basically our veggie production falling off, represents, the sober reality. There's no money in it. And to the extent our local growers have pursued those paths before, they're not doing it now for assorted reasons. And so in other parts of the state, masses of good vegetables. What are the logistics of getting it here? What are the costs of getting it here? How do we get it to the people in need? So there's both a food aid and a food insecurity aspect of what you're bringing forward, but there's also some business modeling and trying to bring that forward. And also, I'm aware, some of you are too, food banking is a part of that. So we have local food aid organizations, we have regional organizations, and we may be talking about this stuff from more of a food security, food aid perspective sooner than later. But to your ask, establishing a food policy committee, I'm not a big fan of committees, but because there's two big kind of issues kind of rolling around there, and in this case, I would support the recreation of this committee just to bounce these ideas around, both from the supporting our local markets and somehow getting local food into local tummies that may be perceived by some as being superior to food from out of the county, but also in figuring out our food relief, our food resiliency thing, the thing that you're most excited about. So I think the Food Policy Committee is a good recommendation in this case. I think the slides that you presented some good bullet points. I think there may be a few other bullet points that weren't presented that committee could dive into and should dive into. So I'm supportive of this.
Okay, do we have members from the public? Looks like we do. You come on up, you can state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
Hello, Greg Dameron, Blue Zones Project. Thank you, Supervisor Sabatier, for bringing this forward. Thank you, Board. I just have a quick story. A couple months ago, I ran into a young farmer. He, I think 29 years old, stopped growing cannabis in Mendocino County, moved to Lake County, bought some property, and was ready to start growing vegetables. I've also talked to farmers that had the dream a number of years ago and eventually didn't become economically viable for them, and they threw in the towel. So I've heard lots of great stories, but I want to focus on the first story. And I think there's a lot of opportunity here. This is an incredible community. We didn't even go into the reverberating effects of this kind of economic development that can happen, and just how it incentivizes all kinds of things connected to tourism, et cetera. So super excited to support. It's always wonderful to be chasing after local leaders and elected officials and supporting their vision rather than trying to muster up vision. So excited for this opportunity, and we've got some great other leaders and collaborators here supporting this. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else want to come up in the chambers?
You came all this way.
As long as we're sharing narrative, I'm Laura McAndrews-Samuel. I'm with the Lake County Chamber of Commerce, and I will tell a quick story about one of our members. I had the pleasure of, she was very generous and shared a financial summary of their farm, local farm, and they grow one big specialty crop that they chose because they felt like just having a farm stand with vegetables wouldn't be profitable. So they grow this specialty crop, and when we look at the financial breakdown, their specialty crop is only 10% of their revenue, and their farm stand is about 80% of their revenue. So I think that having a farm stand and growing vegetables can be a financially viable operation if it's run correctly. So thank you, Supervisor Sabatier, for bringing this forward.
Good afternoon. My name is Gabriela Perez, and I'm here to say that it's right what is happening. You have organizations, national organizations, that are looking at this as a problem that we have, and this is a chronic problem that we are all facing. So it'd be great to have Lake County as a lead to change the narrative, and with having support from local organizations and national organizations that will be helping lead this ideas, I think you can make it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone in the Zoom room? Not seeing any hands. All right, I'll close it and bring it back. Vice Chair Simon?
Yeah, I just want to say, thank you for bringing this, Supervisor Sabatier. We've had many discussions here at the board about how we move forward with the food production. I think food production, and thank you for making that iteration, that the winegate industry, which is excellent in the community, does a great job, creates many benefits, but it's not producing that food that's needed in the households. And I think this step forward, in complete support of setting up the committee, or reestablishing the committee and what is brought forward. But also, too, to always keep in mind, let's not complicate it. Incentivizing, not disincentivizing our crop growers to move into a different market, I think, is very important. So, I definitely support the idea, but how that looks moving forward, because I really want to make sure we incentivize farmers who may be on the cusp of making a decision to do this, and understanding, that we're here to support them, not to make it harder on them. So whenever we're passing stuff for ag, traditional ag, or getting convoluted with the conversation with commercial cannabis and other things, that we really work to support those folks who can provide food. And also on here, our cattle industry, folks that are raising local beef that is sold here in our communities. There's not a big cattle or a meat distribution company, but a lot of the local folks still do buy cattle, buy 3 or 4, split one in half with somebody, and they fill their freezers, helps do that stuff. So making sure we're incentivizing that is, I think, is the most important thing that you touched on in your presentation. So, yeah, completely support it, and hopefully we'll be seeing that increase over the next 5 years. Because we really want to do that. You know, just as we said with the Lake County Risk Reduction Authority, everything that we're working on here, we're a small rural community, something major happens, it's going to be a while before they get to us. So, you know, our OE, Emergency Operations Service through the Sheriff Department, everything we're building is self-sustainability, and this is just another conversation in that manner. So greatly appreciate those conversations. So support it. Yes.
We have a hand up in Zoom. So I'm going to reopen public input. Nicole Flora.
Thank you, Chair Pyska. This is Nicole Flora, Executive Director for the Lake County Economic Development Corporation. I just wanted to share my thoughts quickly. As the EDC, we support the idea of this policy committee being reformed, and we would encourage that policy committee to really seek more information from farmers, understand what the barriers are, and I agree with the idea of incentivizing them to enter the market, but really with the thought of removing barriers that are keeping people from either starting a business or growing within Lake County, and understanding what those issues are specific for that industry. But I'm encouraged by the idea of this committee coming together. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. And Jennifer Smith.
Good morning, board. This is Jennifer Smith. This is exciting. Food insecurity is a personal passion of mine and some of our other members of the Lake County Cannabis Alliance. And we have, for 3 years now, tossed around the ideas of how do we get food from our farms to the community. And to hear that there's actually a distribution in place is really exciting. And I'm looking forward to bringing this back to my industry and seeing how we can further help this. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to close public input again. And I am excited that there's fresh minds and fresh energy on this. This is a world that I was in for a long, long time, and it's hard. It's really hard. So I'm glad that there's some new energy, because the success has always been on an individual basis, and when that individual is overwhelmed or burnt out or out of resources, then everything kind of collapses around it. So it's been fits and starts for many years, and that's, you know, what I did. I worked in the schools, I worked in garden education, I worked trying to connect the cafeterias to local production, and it's hard. So I'm excited to see other people. I'm not going to be on this committee because I've already done it, and I think that you know, new energy is good. There's obviously a lot of environmental concerns. This is not a drought year, so it's a good year to have this discussion. When we have droughts, that's a hard discussion to have then. I have also, you know, it's always important that this is a carrot and not a stick, because we are, you know, our current farmers have a lot on their plate. And I don't want to make sure that we're impacting them anymore and putting more on them that they just frankly cannot bear. So I think the most important thing is we have a lot of places right now that you can buy local products. You can buy local meat. District 1, out on a big ranch, a couple of big ranches. You can go to restaurants that serve the local meat. Farm stands are about to open. Our farmers are breaking their backs right now getting those crops ready. So as this conversation continues, don't forget to be out there at those farmers markets every single week, because without the support of every single one of us going there, they're not going to make it. And I don't want to see anything lost in the creation. So while the energy is there, and I appreciate it and I support it, and I'm so happy to see it, you know, now is the time to go out there and really support the people that are doing the work today. Supervisor Green.
Yeah, thank you. Just point of clarification, since this is reconstituting, so I don't, food policy committee implies maybe the county has a food policy that's already been established or maybe should be established. So question number one, does the county have a food policy that was passed under the previous iteration of this committee? And if so, what are kind of the aspects, the basic aspects of that policy? But just assuming that one doesn't exist and this newly revitalized committee will bounce some ideas for a food policy, I just want to highlight again, I hear two major things. One is let's create economic development and support local farmers, and maybe that's a worthy goal, maybe. But the Mendo Lake Food Hub I see as a project of NCO. So to the extent our local non-governmental organizations want to partner with economic development people and create avenues for food opportunity for local growers, that's one thing. The other part, again, is food aid and how to get food in the hands of those that most need it. Those aren't necessarily two sides of the same coin. And so it is good to have new energy focused on maybe the economic development side, but we also need apparently a fresh set of energy and ideas and partners on the food aid and the food distribution and the food bank side. So if there is an existing food policy, I'd like to know what it is. Doesn't have to happen today. If this committee is revitalized, one suggestion would be not just giving them a blank check, but review the food policy or draft a food policy that can address the bullet points that this board wants to get in there. And it can be both. I assume when we bring a policy forward, it can address both economic development and it can address food aid. But let's identify those two major balls in the air and understand that they're not the same thing.
Supervisor Sabatier?
So I appreciate the comments, and I want to provide the idea to the committee, but I think the committee will have the professionals and the knowledge to be able to really formulate something that can give you better details than I can provide prior to the committee being created. I think we give them a concept to work on, and then they come back with what they've created. As far as a current food policy, I am not aware of a current food policy, and definitely not aware of one that mimics this type of relationship with our local farmers and so on and so forth. I do want to touch on something that Vice Chair Simon mentioned. This is not just about vegetables and fruits. This is also about meat, and I'm also very interested in understanding where do acorns fit, because I was thinking about sustainability, and then I kind of smacked myself silly, and for 7,000 years, acorns have been the sustainable resource for the people that lived here. And so can that play a role in moving forward? What's the possibility? And I don't know enough to speak on that again, but I think that's something that I would like to have that food policy committee look into and see what they come up with. And so today, just looking for that consensus. I believe I have consensus to move forward.
Yes.
And I will come back on June 6th with a consideration of composition of the Food Policy Committee.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you.
It would be really good to address the acorn situation as well, because in different markets or stores, they have acorn flour. And so it would be nice for it to come from here. We're bringing it in from other places or buying it from other places, so it would be ideal.
According to Chef Robert Cabreros at Woodland Community College, South Korea is the only place that makes acorn flour. That was not what I expected to hear when I asked him about that. And I do want to thank the folks that have had conversations with me. I'm looking forward to continuing those conversations, and thank you so much.
Okay. Did you have anything? No. Okay. All right, we will go to our pulled items. 5.5, second reading, adopt ordinance amending Chapter 5, Section 6 of the Lake County Code, adding Section 6.25 relating to exempt agricultural building permitting for temporary hoop structures for commercial cannabis. And Supervisor Sabatier has pulled this item.
So I just wanted to make some comments. I have no issues with the draft ordinance. I have not received any potential issues. The fire districts kind of threw a code at us last time, which I was not aware of that code in our conversations about 4290. I just want to make sure that we have a legal review of that. I'm not certain that fire chiefs went through legal in order to understand how that connects. Their code was based on buildings and facility. Buildings, the definition speaks to a structure that you move into, and talks about occupancy. And I don't believe we're putting a maximum occupancy on each hoop house to say how many people can fit in there safely. That would be more of a public place, that would be more of a home, that would be more of an actual place where you're meant to occupy. The idea of ag exempt is that you're not supposed to occupy. You're supposed to store things, you're supposed to drop off things. So I'm not going to speak legally that I know exactly where it fits, but I just want to make sure that we have a legal background on understanding how 503.1.1 interacts with this. I also had some questions that I asked of CDD. At this moment in time, from my understanding, based on the conversations, and I feel we kind of opened a little bit of a can of worms, and I hope we can seal it back up as quickly as possible, was that anything over 120 square feet requires a permit, unless it's an ag exempt, which is still a permit, but a different type of permit. And so at this moment, we're looking at a commercial cannabis hoop structure ordinance and not a agriculture hoop structure ordinance, which means that anything over 120 square feet at this moment in time would require a building permit. And I would love for CDD to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe based on our conversations that that's correct. And so the reason I say that is, let's get to a point where we can seal that back up, because it makes no sense to me that cannabis is offered this opportunity, granted with certain regulations that maybe traditional ag doesn't want, but I would love for ag to come back and as quickly as possible and work with our team to kind of close up that hole and put that worm back in the can. I don't think you say that, but anyways. And then the last one was, somebody did mention the farmland protection zone. It was a little odd for me that we're talking about all these regulations for hoop structures, but we've never had a conversation about hoop structure regulations when we forced people who were transitioning from outdoor to indoor or mixed light in our farmland protection zone. They were forced to have hoop houses. I've never heard of anyone having to deal with any regulations or any issues before. That's a moot point. But I'm kind of curious what's happening with those folks, because it sounds like the deadline may be May 27th. What's happening with the folks who have submitted applications for transition but have yet to go through the entire process to be able to transition? Will they have a potential extension? Are they going to have to be placed on hold until they finish their transition? I just was curious as to how that's going to be handled, since we were forcing them in hoop houses, and now it seems that there may be something different. Those were my only comments and questions.
Thank you, Supervisor Sabatier. Mireya Turner, Director of Community Development. If I could just seek a little bit of clarification about jamming that worm in or out of the can. Make sure I understand what your intent is, that staff work with representatives from non-cannabis agriculture to find a way that they could also qualify then for the ag exempt building permit or permit for the temporary hoop house use for agriculture.
And I believe in our last meeting, and I'm sorry that I wasn't very clear. I do that sometimes. Last meeting, we had requested that ag work continue to work to come back with some sort of temporary hoop house structure ordinance, for the fact that right now there is nothing to cover them, and it makes no sense that cannabis is covered but not traditional ag. So Hopefully that cleared up. I believe there was a request by the board to do so and continue those conversations either last week or the week before. We've had a few conversations regarding.
Last week, a lot of the discussion was regarding the section of the old resolution for coming back with generalized road standards. So if the board's intent is to direct staff, since you can't direct ag, except for the agricultural commissioner, but if that's the board's consensus, then I'll start working with our agricultural commissioner, Catherine Vanderwall, and see where that goes.
And I believe, again, it was a direction 2 weeks ago, not last week, because I think last week was more dealing with our fire districts who didn't show up the week before. I think the first week was more of a, let's get rid of ag and only make it cannabis. And then that's why it was requested that we continue to have the conversation with ag. And please, board, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that was the direction that was provided.
From what I recall, I think the intent was to come to something at some point, but I don't think we gave direction to start working on it immediately.
Yeah, that's the way I recall it, too. It definitely needs to come back, but trying to finalize this conversation before we add something else on it, that's the way I perceive it.
And I don't mean to say immediately, I don't know that I used that word, but if I was ag, I would be pushing, and we can't control ag, but just the fact that now they're in a gray area, or not a gray area, they're in an area that I think they weren't intending or planning to be in, that
I'd be happy to reach out to our agricultural commissioner as well as the director of the Farm Bureau and get a dialogue started to see what sort of interest there is on that side.
Yeah, but we also want to be mindful of all the priorities that you have given us
I'd
earlier
really
this year.
appreciate
And
that.
we don't want you to have to be distracted.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Because those are our top priorities.
And our cannabis task force will continue doing their work as well, so nothing will get side-railed or sidelined. We have, on the FPZ side of your question, we have 18 projects that were approved within the Farmland Protection Zone. According to Ordinance 3103, those projects were given a 2-year transition period, during which they could use temporary hoop houses, but at the end of which they were to convert into mixed-light indoor or greenhouses with filtration systems. So far, we have only 4 of those 17 that have not turned in plans to convert. So I have heard some dialogue regarding, well, will this temporary hoop structure apply to the ones in FPZ? However, if you take a look at it, the temporary hoop structure in Ordinance 3103 was offered as an option during the conversion. It was not intended to be a permanent qualification to count the same as indoor or mixed light or greenhouses, which is a solid structure with filtration systems. So I don't know that today's ordinance would apply to that, in that the 2-year transition period is actually coming to an end. So for those 4 permittees who have not submitted applications for those transition, the ordinance does state that those permits would be revoked. However, they still would all go through the revocation process, which starts with the department or the director taking an item before the Planning Commission for a request for revocation. But that revocation is actually up to the Planning Commission. And County Council is welcome to correct me if I've gotten anything wrong.
That is correct.
And I agree with you, land use is primary, and land use says that they're not allowed to do outdoor within the farmland protection zone. My question was more specific to those. I didn't know it was 14 applications that submitted for transition. If they're not done with the transition, are they going to be forced to pause their activity, or are they going to be allowed to continue in hoop houses until that transition is complete?
Good question. That one I don't think I've planned out yet, because the ordinance itself just gave specific deadlines when applications for the modification of their approved permits went into play, and then they had the 2 years to come into that transition. I would have to actually do a little more, maybe quite likely confer with county council regarding that. But either way, if they were to be added to that revocation, that takes time. It's not, I'm still working on our first one. We've got a list of like 5. So I need the staff report to go to county council for proper vetting, since this is a significant impact to revoke a use permit. So it is likely that they'd be on my list, but we won't get to them. We won't take them before the Planning Commission anytime soon.
Supervisor Green?
Yeah, thank you. And I want to thank the gentleman who called me on Monday, Mr. Rodriguez. He may still be with us. The ordinance before us today, the temporary hoop house ordinance, been clearly vetted. It will apply to people, not necessarily in FPZ limbo, but the basic purpose of this ordinance, definitely strongly support this ordinance moving forward today. I am, as to the the transition for projects that were cited in FPZs and allowed to convert, I am stunned to hear this, number one, that it happened, but I've heard lots of interesting things happen with our ordinance over the years under assorted leadership. And I don't even know how to process it. So I guess at some appropriate time, I would like to hear that with board consensus to come back for a separate discussion to the extent that those people can and do need relief as it was envisioned under Ordinance 3103. I think there's a fairly simple fix that could extend the deadline, and that would take some revocation heat off, and then we could have, when we bring that proposed fix back.
Can we keep the conversation about today's ordinance so that we can just move through this, please?
Okay. I just learned Monday that 18 outdoor cultivation projects were approved in lands where they were not supposed to be approved. And now, I think a good part of the language that came before the task force in bringing this ordinance forward was maybe some misplaced hope, but at least some hope when they were talking about this conversion process. I had no clue what was doing. Apparently, there is a good chunk of people who are looking, if they're in FPZ land, to this ordinance for relief. And we're not going to deliver that relief today, nor should we. So I can't not discuss it because it was part of the discussion bringing this ordinance forward, and because now new information is presented, that this may not be equitably applied to those people that somehow were supposed to sunset their outdoor growing operations in FPZ lands.
But that conversation might have come up in the task force meeting, but it wasn't board direction at that time. And what we're trying to finalize is this ordinance that we gave direction on and we've had several meetings on, and I'm not discounting that that is not a problem. It sounds like it is, but it's not something that is on our agenda topic today.
I would be happy to bring that item before the board in the future. The Cannabis Task Force has already discussed it, and they opted to not extend the deadline.
So question to County Council, as this ordinance is presented today, could a grower as described in our FPZ that is tasked through Ordinance 3103 and their project conditions of approval to convert, can this ordinance be used to at least temporarily satisfy the conversion to mixed light? And I would say no, because by definition, these hoop houses are considered outdoor cultivation. They would not be considered mixed light cultivation unless we had a whole different ordinance that allowed for building permits, electrical permits, and I'm not saying that we can't get there when we do revisit this, because our current definition in 27 for cannabis greenhouse conceivably could allow for a powered hoop house that is permitted, but this ordinance is designed to create temporary hoop houses that under the state law as it exists now and the state regulations as it exists now is by definition going to be outdoor cultivation. So if this ordinance is to be made available to those FPZ growers that are trying to convert, my question is this a thing? And based on my very limited understanding, because again, I just learned about this yesterday, I would say no, this will not help them convert. So when we all take a vote tonight, let's at least be clear what our common understanding is. Is this ordinance going to benefit these growers that are trying to transition, or is it not?
Well, this ordinance would apply to those who would satisfy the requirements under sections 1 and 2 of the ordinance as it's drafted now. So practical considerations on whether a certain type of area or cultivator would be able to utilize the permit that's referenced under this ordinance, it would certainly hinge on whether or not those requirements would be satisfied. And it was mentioned about, at least in its current draft, there are no, and that was the subject of discussions, in prior discussions, the electrical and mechanical equipment on these hoop houses. Those were excluded. Those were not referenced in this ordinance. So certainly that would, that is not contemplated within as part of the conditions and requirements in this ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
And that was made a part of the board's discussions in prior meetings.
Okay, if there's no more discussion, or do you have anything to add, Director Turner?
I was just wondering, or would appreciate confirmation if there is consensus to bring forward the discussion regarding the extension of the deadline past May 23rd to the board for its consideration.
No, I say no for me.
No, that's not on the agenda.
Then I'm clear and done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Do we have public comment on this item?
Michael Wagner, thank you guys for bringing all of this back together once again. I think that, well, to start with the agricultural community, while I do play a part in cannabis, I also am heavily involved in agriculture, mainly wine particularly, with the cannabis being able to move forward with a relatively simple, straightforward way to be able to cultivate within inside of a greenhouse or a hoop house, not allowing general ag or traditional ag to do the same would seem counterintuitive. So I think it's something we should definitely look at how to bring that about. It actually goes hand in hand with what Bruno had brought up just previously as far as small farmers and how do they maximize space, how do they get multiple generations from each season. Being able to use something quick and convenient would play a huge role in them being able to do that, as well as recycle their water and so on and so forth. Stepping away from that, the FPZ zoning and the regulations therein, if we say we have roughly 120 active permits for cannabis cultivation, when we say 18 of that 120, we're looking at 15% of everybody. So it's directly related to the ordinance that you're looking at passing today. To exclude that from the conversation would seem not intentionally done, but it's going to put 15% of these people in who are already in limbo into total limbo. So people that have filed for their update of information to do the conversion to mixed light because they fall into FPZ did rely on the idea that these hoop structures would basically cover their crops and fulfill what the point or the intent of that FPZ zoning ordinance did. With that, at late May, if you say 15% of these people now are on hold and they can't operate or move forward, that is a major effect. That's not something that can just be disregarded. It's elemental. So to say, okay, we're not going to discuss it and we're not going to bring it forward or find some way to at least address it seems irresponsible. So with that, I will close my comments. Thank you.
I just want to clarify, Maria, if you could clarify for me, there are 18, but there are only 4 that haven't done what they need to do to move forward. Was that your comment?
Yes.
Or did I hear that correct? So it's not 18. It's not irresponsible. What I think is irresponsible is not moving forward in the process that was given you. 13, or, yeah, right, so 18, so 14 out of the 18 have done what they need to do to help them move forward, and 4 have not applied for anything, so it just,
Correct.
that's correct, right?
Yes.
So, a large majority of that, so the 15% number you're using is completely wrong, because most of them have moved forward. There was an opportunity there, and I think that's what we're always trying to do, is give the opportunity to take the steps forward. We put timelines on these things, so it's not just ever-ending. To say that we're irresponsible, we're not irresponsible. We attempted to give an opportunity for folks in the FPZ zone to move forward, and, you know, at that point, that's where my comments come from. So we can keep extending and changing, but we got to get some stuff done, put in lines. The opportunities are given need to be taken advantage of, and it must have been an opportunity because 14 out of the 18 did do that, so, from my understanding. So unless I'm wrong.
I have a question for you, and I guess more for Director Turner. The 14 have not yet been approved by the Planning Commission to transition to mixed light or indoor. They've just submitted their application and have been in the process of going through that process. Am I correct on that, or 14 have been fully approved?
The worksheet I got from staff said that they had been approved, but I'd have to double check on that one. Also, oh, hey, Andrew.
But, so just for
So I
clarity, mine was,
misunderstood.
they've been given a process. 14 of them have taken those steps forward. So I just wanted to clarify in the numbers, you can't just bulk all 18 together because there are folks that have taken steps forward.
Additionally, before I turn this over to the Cannabis Program Manager, I would like to bring the board's attention to the definition of mixed light in the zoning code, which does cite, or does say, the cultivation of cannabis in a greenhouse, glass house, conservatory, hothouse, or other similar structure using light deprivation and/or artificial lighting below a rate of 25 watts per square foot. It does not refer to hoop house. So I'm not sure where the misunderstanding would have been then, that everyone was waiting because this would count.
No, this was only for the transition period that the conversation should be, not for where the ultimate destination is for those that are cultivating in the farmland protection zone.
And I'll turn this over to the Cannabis Program Manager.
Yes, I just came down to clarify 2 things. Of that list of 18 that staff had put together, one of those projects was still pending, so it shouldn't be in that list. And then 2 others are processing facilities, so it wouldn't apply. So of it, we have 9 projects that are in compliance with Ordinance 3101 and 3103. 3 projects that have submitted plans and are approved for compliance, however, they have opted out. They have not actually started their operations at this point, which leaves us with our 4 projects. And while they, I think it mentioned earlier that they had not submitted plans, they have started the process. However, at this point, they're unable to complete the process of the transition. So some of them have submitted engineered plans, some of them have been approved, but they're just not going to be able to implement it at this time. That's one project. Another project had been approved for their outdoor, and then the initial study did not consider the greenhouses that would be required due to this ordinance, so they've submitted new plans. However, they haven't completed their application to submit that transition, or
And that
to
was part of
complete
the
that transition.
requirements.
Yes, as required, so.
Supervisor Green?
So when you say compliance, that means they've submitted site plans or they've executed them and brought forward completed greenhouses that have been approved?
One of them has been approved. They've submitted everything they need. The initial study that was initially circulated covered the transition. So the paperwork is there for them to move forward. They are just not in the position to move forward, is my understanding. Another had been approved, but not as part of this conversion. They've submitted some of their plans, but Public Works wants engineered drainage plans and erosion control plans, and they have been unable to provide those. And the other project is just stalled, not sure what to do. So.
But for compliance purposes, the deadline says to have it completed, not like you're halfway there and your site plans are halfway done, right? So how many?
Yeah, I mean, one of the four, I think
done?
the, Stella Green Farms, I believe the applicant contacted you. They've been approved for their plan to go ahead and convert and meet the requirements of this ordinance. My understanding is that this year, due to the market conditions and other reasons, they're not going to be able to, construct the greenhouses as required as part of their plans that have been submitted. So they're looking for other options, potentially with the application of hoop houses, so.
And then the definition, Director Turner, you mentioned the hoop house definition, but then the greenhouse - cannabis definition within the same ordinance does seem to potentially allow the use of hoop houses, that in the context of mixed light greenhouse cultivation, it would be a powered hoop house. So we would distinguish, and again, the state regs have changed, but I think the definition of greenhouse cannabis within the same ordinance wisely gives us the flexibility to say a hoop house that is unpowered, as described in the ordinance before us today, can be used for outdoor cultivation. For those that may end up, like our FPZ friends here, having to transition, at least the way I'm reading our definition, and I stand ready to be corrected, allows flexibility, potentially could allow flexibility for the use of powered hoop houses with building permits, with electrical permits, with plumbing if needed, to qualify as a greenhouse that could be permitted for mixed light cultivation. Don't need to answer that today, I'm just pointing that out.
Okay. I would also like to correct one other thing. The task force did discuss the extension of the FPZ ordinance, and they did vote to extend it by 2 years. Initially, they'd considered 1 year. They wanted to add another year in case the full ordinance would undergo environmental review, so.
Okay. So we're still in public comment, and we have a hand up, Michael Rodriguez. You can unmute and have 3 minutes. Please state your name.
Hi, I'm Michael Rodriguez with Stella Green Farms. I'm one of the farms that's being affected by this conversion. I have turned in my plans over a year ago, probably close to more than a year and a half ago. And with the whole hoop house ordinance it's been going through, we were directed to hold back on our whole transition phase of building engineered greenhouses, which requires a lot of work into it. Definitely, in a year into it. And we were told by the county to hold back on it because this conversion would affect us. We'll come to find out in May right now, we're not in that conversion, and nobody gave us any kind of feedback letting us know, hey, you're not going to be included in this, or else I would have been doing the transition. I would have been, part of, doing all the requirements to go into that. And, due to the market and all that, that's why we held back, hoping that this was going to be, we were led to believe that this was going to help us out. And now it's not. So I asked, please, at least give us an extension so we could comply, or else, we won't be able to do anything this season, and that will put us out. And and I'm one of the, I've been compliant. I've been in and out of the county this whole time through this 2 years, and you could ask anybody in the building and planning. I've been in and out of there, and that's what we were told through the county, the building, and now we're at this point, and we're not even at least given an extension that should go into consideration. So I ask you, please take it into consideration because it will affect at least me and a few other farms that are trying.
That's not on the agenda today. That's not what we're discussing today. And was there a response from staff? No? Okay. You don't have to. If you want to.
For this applicant, the conversion was part of the project plan from the beginning. I remember doing the inspection on it in 2021, And we made note that they weren't in full compliance because they had not met the conversion at this point. They came and asked why, and that was the reason why. As far as other staff telling them to hold and do that, they had worked with a few other planners. I can't confirm or deny that, but it did not come from myself or our director. So.
Okay, thank you. Did somebody unclick over here? No, okay. Did you have something to say? No? Supervisor Spatier?
And I feel like I convoluted the conversation. It was more of how does this ordinance of hoop house regulations impact those that were involved in the transition who had submitted plans and maybe weren't finished. Based on what I'm learning now, it sounds to me like they're all done except for those that have not done, finished their applications or had some other issues that didn't meet the requirements of the original ordinance to allow them that transition. So I'm good, and yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Ready for action.
Madam Chair, I move to adopt the ordinance amending Chapter 5.
Apologies. For this second reading of the ordinance, your board may just offer the ordinance with a roll call vote.
Thank you. I offer the ordinance. So much easier.
Supervisor Simon?
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Aye.
Supervisor Crandall?
Aye.
Supervisor Green?
Aye.
And Supervisor Pyska?
Yes.
Thanks.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you, staff, for getting us to this point. Thank you very much. And thank you to everybody who gave input and volunteered all along the way. It's been a long, long process, and we're really grateful for the support throughout. Okay, item 5.6A, approve side letter to Lake County Employee Association, October 21st, 2021 through June 30th, 2025. B, approve a side letter to Lake County Safety Employee Association, October 21st, 2021 through June 30th, 2025. C, approve a side letter to Lake County Correctional Officer Association. D, approve a side letter to Lake County Deputy District Attorney Association, October 21st, 2021 through June 30th, 2025. E, adopt resolution amending resolution 2021 through 122, establishing salaries and benefits for employees assigned to confidential unit. Section A, for October 21st, 2021 to June 30th, 2025. F, adopt resolution amending resolution 2021-123, establishing salaries and benefits for employees assigned to confidential unit. Section B, for October 21st, 2021 through June 30th, 2025. And G, adopt resolution amending resolution 2021-124, establishing salaries and benefits for management employees for the period of November 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2025. And H, authorize the chair to sign. And this was pulled by Supervisor Spatier.
Yes, thank you. Sorry to make you read that lengthy introduction. I just wanted to pull this. I will not be voting in favor of this. I am concerned. I feel that we weren't, I do not like the process that we took to get here. And I also believe that we're not being fully transparent. I believe there were some inconsistencies with the numbers provided in the prior meeting we had in April, and no new numbers are being provided here other than just the side letters. In my calculations, I feel we missed some potential employees that would transfer over. Based on the numbers that I received, they were all based on March, so I just used those March numbers received from HR. I believe we were looking at 25% of our current employees that have health insurance, not employees that do not have health insurance and get the $200 stipend in order to get their own health insurance. And that right there would add another increase. So with all of the stuff that we've been approving, whether it's the 2020 raises, the 2021 raises, the board raises, the 80/20 for LCDSA, the addition of another holiday. All of those things keep adding and adding. We started in October of 2020 with 20% vacancy. Today or yesterday, I asked for a new vacancy list. We're at 20%. Now, there's a lot of potential reasons we could be at 20%. It could be that the things we've done has helped us remain at 20%. But the balance between services rendered to our community for economic development purposes, to increase revenues, to be able to afford these things, the balance between what we're giving our staff and what we're giving our communities, today I cannot vote for this. I do not feel comfortable. In the last 3 years, we've added, and I'm going to say close to, because I know I spoke with Stephen Carter about this, and he said it's probably close to that, but approximately $10 million a year extra that we're spending since October of 2020. Adding more makes me nervous. We are one of the only counties that are not seeing a deficit in our current budget. Humboldt has a deficit, Mendocino has a deficit, Sonoma has a deficit. I just going to play the cautious play today and will not be approving these.
Okay, so we did approve this as a board to ease the pain of a lot of the families of our staff that are feeling this right now. And this is just approving the letters on that previous discussion and decision made by the board. Any other comments? Supervisor Green?
Yeah, just on the side letter with LCCOA Unit 06, near the bottom of the first page, there's a typo, and I don't think it's substantive, but the sentence reads, the $1 health insurance, $500 per month county contribution. So just to avoid any possibility of confusion, I think the first paragraph is very clear what the intent is. But if we're going to approve this today, I would suggest we just clean that up.
Vice Chair Simon?
And, you know, we have had multiple discussions. I want to thank for the staff for the hard work for bringing this back to us. It was approved, so today, obviously, I'm here to support this. One more thing, always, as we move forward, this has been a conversation that was started when we started with the last bargaining unit conversations we had, is we're moving forward to help with our employees. Obviously, we got a long ways to go on getting the, the vacancy rate down, but this is one more step to help us move in that direction. So appreciate the hard work of staff bringing this back by our direction and having at this point to vote on it today.
Thank you. Do we have anyone in the chambers who'd wish to speak on this, or anyone in the Zoom room? Not seeing any, so I will bring it back for action.
So do I do the motions for the side letters first? Like if I was to do A, we do each letter separately?
I think it could be, your board may do it all in one motion or separately.
And then adopt resolution as that would be on its own, right?
Yes, the resolution should be offered separately.
So I will motion to approve side letter to Lake County Employee Association, October 21, 2021 through June 30th, 2025. Approve a side letter to Lake County Safety Employees Association, October 21, 2021, June 30th, 2025. Approve side letter to Lake County Correctional Officer Association. Approve a side letter to Lake County Deputy District Attorney Association, October 21st, 2021 through June 30th, 2025.
And just to, for further clarification, would that also include the correction or amendment to the side letter to the Lake County Correctional Officer Association?
And I motion those. I motion to with the amendments, and then authorize the chair to sign.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
I offer the resolution amending Resolution 2021-122, establishing salaries and benefits for employees assigned to Confidential Unit Section A for October 21, 2021 to June 30th, 2025.
All right, Supervisor Simon?
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Nay.
Supervisor Crandall?
Aye.
Supervisor Green?
Aye.
And Supervisor Pyska?
Yes.
I offer the resolution amending Resolution 2021-123 establishing salaries and benefits for employees assigned to confidential unit Section B for October 21, 2021 to June 30th, 2025.
All right, Supervisor Simon?
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Nay.
Supervisor Crandall?
Aye.
Supervisor Green?
Aye.
And Supervisor Pyska?
Yes.
I offer the resolution amending Resolution 2021-124 establishing salaries and benefits for management employees for the period from November 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2025, and authorize the chair to sign.
Okay, Supervisor Simon?
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Nay.
Supervisor Crandall?
Aye.
Supervisor Green?
Aye.
And Supervisor Pyska?
Yes.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. So I think the last that we have is 7.1. Calendars. Who's ready?
I'll go ahead and go. Have LAFCO tomorrow in the morning. In the afternoon, have a air curtain burner conversation on here, so I'm going to join that. On Thursday, I have the State Board of Fire Services, so I'll be traveling to Sacramento in the afternoon on that. On Friday, there is a tour of Calpines and the Geyser facility, and I think I'm going to join that one again. I've been up there plenty of times, but I'm going to do that. From this weekend is the 6th, I'm pretty sure it's the 6th. Yeah, I think it's the 6th annual Chili Salsa Cook-Off. Starts at 8:30 a.m. down at Library Park. So one of the Middletown Senior Center's larger fundraisers. So if you're good at cooking chili, look into that information. You know, it's an all-day event. I think it goes to about 3 o'clock. But it starts at 8:30 with the cooking, and then the judging is around noon. There's music, food, just a great day right in the middle of town there at the park in front of the senior center. So that's one of the bigger events. And then back here on Tuesday, I did have a space committee meeting yesterday. Just following up on conversations as we're moving forward. Space committee conversation really focused on the long-term opportunities for the shelter. So that was all positively moved. I don't know if Lars has reported back, but kind of reporting today that, continued support from the Space Committee for that facility. There may be other conversations that need to happen, but just wanted to make sure that we knew that was happening. Did have the RRA meeting yesterday, but we did have a quorum issue, so we were unable to meet. There are some things we're going to be looking to do as far as a grant opportunity. There may be a special meeting later on in the month. We've asked all of our board members to be prepared to try and address a support letter for a grant that will be going in by the end of the month, and also want to finalize everything that we voted on for RCD doing that. So challenges with committees and being in person. Sometimes we've had that happen a couple of times, so hopefully we can address those issues. Hopefully there can be a change made at the state level that allows us to continue operation with some Zoom capabilities. But we'll see as that goes on, and we'll continue to try and press our participants to got to be here in person. It is a change from what it used to be. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yesterday, I attended the basically what I call Shelter 2.0 working group with behavioral health, and I think we were successfully. We're being aggressive, and I think we were able to move some deadlines up, and so the direction that we gave to get the RFP out sooner than later, I think we're going to be well on that track. Tomorrow, I have Courthouse Advisory Group on my agenda. I don't know why. I'm not sure that I'm a member of that, but I'm interested in that, so I will be tuning in on that. Thursday, I also have Continuum of Care on my calendar. I don't know if that's a thing, but based on Monday's direction, I think there may be a special meeting of the executive committee that will be popping up sooner than later. So I'm not sure about that meeting. But if it is a meeting, I'm going to be on the road to Eureka on Thursday. So if there is COC on Thursday, I'll look to Supervisor Sabatier to fill in. I'll be attending North Coast EMS in Eureka in person. Another committee and another agency, JPA, kind of struggling with the new paradigm of in-person meetings, but I'm a big fan of in-person meetings, so I'm going to go and maybe take a couple other meetings while I'm up there with some Humboldt soups. But because I'll be on the road, I will not be able to attend. Redbud Audubon is having its first annual picnic on Thursday since May 2019. That will be at Lakeside County Park. So if you like birds and if you like people who like birds, they'll be at the picnic tables to the left of the boat ramp starting at 5:30 p.m. And I think that's about it.
Want to go?
Yeah, we already had our COC meeting on May 4th, so the next one should be in June. So whatever's on that calendar, I don't see it. If there's a special meeting, I have not received an email about it. So I'll let you know if I see anything, and please let me know as well if you have more information on that. Let's go ahead and just say what I'm doing next week or this week. Obviously joining Vice Chair Simon at LAFCO tomorrow. I know that there's the Russian River Water Forum Planning Group. Please let me know if you need me to be there. I will not be there at the time it starts, but if I need to, it sounds like a long meeting based on what I see on the calendar.
Yes, it would help. I mean, I'm going via Zoom because I have a conflict, but so from like, I want to say like 11 to like, I want to say like 12:30, I will be on my other conflict. So if you can tune in during that time frame.
I would suspect we can finish our LAFCO meeting by 11-ish.
Yeah.
And so I'll do my best to jump on.
And I'll jump right back on when I'm finished.
Perfect. Thank you so much. There's an IFT and EMCC meeting on Thursday, Judges Breakfast in the morning, and a City Council meeting later that evening. Meeting with the Food Empire, Redwood Food Empire in Santa Rosa on Friday, and also meeting with our fire districts, their transfer centers, and to discuss some other ways to reduce the hours that our patients are staying in beds waiting for transport. So continuing those conversations on Friday. Over the weekend, I'm preparing because on Tuesday at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to be taking a flight out to Phoenix, Arizona, going to Coconino County for the Economic Mobility Leadership Network convening. So I will not be at the board meeting on the 23rd. And just real quick, I didn't get to, we kind of had a quick calendar last time. PEG TV, we had done an agreement to do videography. We have all of the equipment. We're ironing out the kinks for all the equipment. We did a test for PEG TV to have that production happen. I know that Sam Houston used our equipment for yesterday. There's still stuff to iron out for, I think he used it for the visioning forum. Like I said, there's still things to iron out. We're working on that, and just wanted to keep you up to date that we are trying to do our best to get ready. Took some time to put it all together. Appreciate all the help that Sam Houston has done, as well as Thomas DeWalt, to get all of those things put together and ready to go. That's it for me.
When are you coming back?
The 24th, I think it's Wednesday.
Okay.
Maybe Thursday.
Go ahead, Supervisor Crandall.
No, I was really glad to see the equipment at use last night at Robinson Rancheria. Unfortunately, there was an internet situation.
Not related to equipment.
Not related to the equipment, but that was a really promising. I'll just go into the forum. It was a real productive evening. The technical difficulties were not, again, because of the equipment, but still a lot of work got done. The folks that were on the Zoom call or Zoom format, they did their work on their own with the other facilitator, and then in the room we had I want to say like 5 groups going over, and it was really productive and really. I think we'll be having a good June 5th meeting. We had a lot more people, and it helped because Luisa Acosta and Gilbert Rangel. They asked me to go on the radio and kind of talk about it, so I tried my Spanish, but I chopped it up. So I just spoke in English. They did it for me. But okay, so that was the visioning forum. It was really productive. A lot of people felt good about it, and it was the anniversary, 173rd anniversary of the Bloody Island Massacre, and so we talked about that somewhat, and folks felt really moved by some of the statements that were made. Last week, I went to RCRC, as you know. Thursday, we basically did a tour. We always do like a tour of whatever town we're in, or when it comes to the chairs, they have the chair meeting wherever the chair's from, so Butte County. And every time we're there, they give us like a nice tour of all the things that they have are the most prevalent issues. And one was the Oroville Dam, and that was a really interesting tour, just to see I mean, we're dealing with the Potter Valley, project, but just to see that dam at a really extensive look underground, and this dam, like when you go to the top of it, you see the whole town and everything in the horizon, and it's like if that dam breaks like it did before, there's a real effect there. So it was really interesting. I appreciate going on the dam and the dam trip. No pun intended. But after that, following that, we took buses and did a tour of the town of Paradise and their recovery from the fire. It was really just surreal, just to see some of the buildings still, or some of the houses still not being built. People left and didn't come back because of some of the struggles they have. They also had some examples of resiliency. There was a situation where in one of the POAs, the golf course left. The people that ran the golf course left. The group and community decided to make a disc golf. They got so mad when people said frisbee golf. So it's disc golf, and it's actually the 24th most visited in California, out of like 138 or something like that. So people are actually going there to be a part of this course. It's really, and actually I think that's in the nation, because people are coming from Washington State, Pennsylvania, all over the United States to come and be a part of this and attend that. So I was just like, we were all really like impressed that they, basically took lemons and made lemonade. And they have a community center that used to be the golf store, and then the golf, there used to be like a hamburger shack, which they now use as a community room to do their town halls and to do events. And then the other area is where you can buy the discs and everything like that. So it's a real awesome community story there. So next day, we had our board meeting, and this one, they had to go, they being a lot of the staffers and the lobbyists wanted to go and be a part of the budget discussion. So with that, we had a real streamlined meeting, but in that, there was some bills that were discussed. And so I'll go through some of those which are pertinent to Lake County. One of them being SB 820, which is cannabis enforcement, seizure of property. And it's been read the second time and amended. It adapts the same seizure of property provisions currently applicable to unlicensed manufacturing of alcoholic beverages, i.e. moonshining, to cover unlicensed commercial cannabis activities. SB 820 would invest enforcement proceedings or proceeds in the Cannabis Control Fund to support equity business. And this is sponsored by RCRC, so it's really promising to hear this. It's another avenue to working on illegal cannabis, and it looks like they're using some of the moonshine tactics. So SB 753, Cannabis Water Resources, this amends Section 11358. Lloyd probably knows more about that than I do when it comes to the Health and Safety Code. It's about groundwater, public resources, and establishing the theft of groundwater, unauthorizing tapping into water conveyance or storage infrastructure, or digging an unpermitted illegal well, and it may also be punishable by imprisonment. So that's also sponsored by RCRC. Another one, this is hazardous materials, and it's ordered to a third reading, allows county council to enforce provisions of state law related to above-ground storage tanks, underground storage tanks, medical waste, and hazardous material business plans. And that one, oh no, it is actually, I forgot to put the number in, but I'll come back to that. It says there's a few more. There is, Senator McGuire has SB 620, which may be helpful here. The current law defines special occupancy park to mean a recreational vehicle, temporary recreational vehicle park, incidental camping area, or tent camp. This bill would specify that for purposes of the Special Occupancy Parks Act, a special occupancy park does not include low-impacting camping areas. The bill would define a low-impact camping area to mean any area of private property that provides for transient occupancy rental of a temporary sleeping accommodation as defined for recreational purposes that is not commercial lodging facility and meets specific requirements. This bill would provide that its provisions do not authorize an individual to access private property without permission of the landowner. This would authorize counties in which the low-impact camping area is located to enforce some of those special requirements relating to waste disposal and quiet hours. So that's something, we struggle with in our parks and whatnot. So that's going to help. SB 43 is basically dealing with gravely disabled folks and defining conservatorship to allow for folks that are under serious harm to be, it defines those serious harm purposes to get these provisions to mean significant deterioration and allow for people to have an avenue for self-protection and personal safety. So that's what that is. Another sponsored bill is AB 1448. Cannabis enforcement, it would enhance local enforcement mechanisms for unlicensed cannabis activities by creating a streamlined local administrative penalty process and allow jurisdictions to utilize statutory penalties and create more collection options. So promising there. Another sponsor is 909. This one basically makes illegally disposed hazardous waste eligible for funding under the Cal Recycles Illegal Dumping Grant Program. 704, energy building standards, and it exempts homes meeting certain requirements and rebuilt after being destroyed by a wildfire from state laws requiring installation of solar panels. And these are all in committee or pushed forward. So I'm just giving you an update on some of the legislation that's also moving forward that may help our county. And so AB 692, egress route projects. This is for fire safety, exempts California CEQA egress routes projects undertaken by a public agency to improve emergency access to an evacuation from subdivision without secondary egress route. If the State Board of Forestry and Fire Protection has recommended the creation of a secondary access to subdivisions. Open meetings, I won't go over that one. AB 338, and this one is in opposition, I think, that we have, and this is basically revolves around the recommendation to have for public works vegetation maintenance and the clearing of that. This is requiring that what's it called, prevailing wage is intact, and that would really, that would hinder some of what's going on in our county, especially in regard to a lot of the vegetation that we have. So that's an opposed situation from RCRC. And the last one I have is AB 54 by Cecilia Aguilar Curry, and this one is moving forward, and it would require the Department of Food and Agriculture upon appropriation by legislation in the budget of 2023 to provide funding for research to investigate accurate measures of smoke compounds in wine grapes and wine, methods to mitigate damage to wine grapes and wine that occur from exposure to smoke. It would require the department to establish an advisory committee of specified members appointed by the Secretary and provide recommendations to the Secretary for funding research proposals submitted to the Department of these provisions. The bill would make these provisions inoperative on January 1st, 2029, when all funds appropriated or pursuant to the budget. So I know that was long, but I just wanted to let you all know that these are moving forward, and there's a couple that we oppose. But at the same time, if these pass, this can help some of our issues in Lake County, especially I liked seeing the one from McGuire about the parks, so or the the RVs and stuff like that. So I talked about the Visioning Forum this week, and North Shore Business Association, Russian River Water Forum, and then West Region Town Hall. Thursday, I see Lake County Recreation Board, but I don't know if that's accurate. I think I might have something wrong there. I think that's the fourth Thursday, right?
Yeah, it's next week.
Okay. Friday, PG&E monthly meeting. It's going to be the topic.
You're doing that?
Online, yeah. I'll go.
Good.
Yeah. Are you doing it?
No, I'm not able to, so I was
No?
asking Susan if there was someone.
Okay, yeah, I do those because they have them monthly with RCRC,
Yeah.
so I'll make sure I go to that.
Great.
Saturday, Clash Against Trash. It's from 9 to 1. It'll be at the Castle in the front left parking lot. This is an initiative that was Kenny Parlay, Lonnie Urquiza, the previous Lath chair, and Dandy Bonus tried to do in 2020, but COVID happened, and bam, it was gone. So we're reinvigorating it. It's going to be this Saturday, and you can bring household garbage, e-waste, and bulky items. And this is also sponsored by Lake County Waste Solutions, and the Central Region Town Hall is going to be a part of it as well. So this will be something they get to start out doing. Sunday, I'll be at a science event in Upper Lake. I was invited to be a part of that CAO meeting on Monday and Board of Supervisors Tuesday, and I apologize for the long report, but I got to let you know what I'm doing at RCRC as well. So
You've been busy. So Terry Logston and I went to Santa Cruz last week, and we had the full day of the Wildfire and Forest Health Task Force, which was always a great opportunity to spend a lot of time with our CSAC and RCRC rec. Poor Stacy drove from Santa Cruz up to see you. And putting together our strategies. I did get to have some time with Secretary Crowfoot and talk about the specific need for a tree mortality working group within the task force. Also spoke with the Secretary of Cal EPA and the Director of the Governor's Office of Research, and talked about how we need to be in one of the regions. Right now, we're not in the coastal region where the biomass pilot programs are, and we're not in the central northern one either. So, how can we really work to change that? That's a conversation we've been having for almost a year also. So hopefully we'll start to see some motion with those conversations. But it's always a great event for networking. I'm really glad we went. So appreciate that investment. And yesterday I had, in the evening, the KBA mixer at Finch Gardens, which was really lovely because it was planned for the spring of 2020. And to see the Airbnb back up and running and everyone out and about, and lovely evening was delightful. So this week, tomorrow is agenda review. I have my meeting with Redwood Empire Food Bank. I have a meeting with Woodland College, the air curtain burner meeting. And then Thursday, the morning LIDAR meeting, law library. I'm going on the probation tour, and then I have a CAC in the evening. Friday, tour of the geysers, which I feel like that's always my stomping ground. I get to go home when I go up there. And also the battery backup storage I haven't seen yet, so that's going to be fun and exciting. And Saturday and Sunday, Buckingham Test and Tune Vintage Speedboats and Classic Cars. I will probably be there on Sunday, but it is both days. That's going to be really fun. But Saturday morning, I have cleanup of Pine Summit Pool, and then Sunday, I think I'll go to the Test and Tune prior to the Historical Society's annual picnic at Eli. And then I don't think that we're having our meeting with you on Monday because she's going to still be on vacation. So let's not bug her. Let's let our CAO travel peacefully home and we'll see you on the 23rd. Yes. Okay.
I just wanted to, I forgot one thing. In between the Oroville Dam tour and the Paradise, there was a trip to a farm because they, in Butte, they farm a lot of rice. And there was an issue with some of the, I think it's the steelhead or the salmon, that were traveling from a specific watershed to basically another watershed. And so the farms worked to make fish irrigation routes for them. And so there was actually, I got some footage of the videos. So they have fish ladders so they could survive. And so it's really cool to see the farmers working with, everybody was working together to make this happen. So I think that's a good example of what can happen with our hitch and whatnot.
What we can strive for.
Right.
Awesome. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, so that is the end of our closed session items. We will break for lunch, but before we do, I'll read off the closed session items. 8.1 will be pulled.
Madam Chair, if
Yes.
I may, we are pulling closed session item 8.1 or withdrawing it for today.
Pulling 8.1 for today.
Yes.
Okay. So then we will do 8.2, conference with legal counsel.
Madam Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Can I respectfully request that the order be taken in the following fashion? Because I have to be on the road by 3.
Okay.
And so I was thinking that we would be farther along than we are. But so 8.4, 8.3, 8.2, and 8.5 in that order. That way I can notify the 2 individuals regarding 8.4 and 8.3 when they should be here.
Okay, 8.4.
8.3, 8.2, then 8.5.
Okay, but I'll go ahead and just read them in the order they are here, and then we'll do that order when we come back. 8.2, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9. D1, FERC project number 77, Potter Valley Hydroelectric Project. 8.3, public employee appointment pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B1. Interviews for behavioral health director, appointment of behavioral health director. 8.4, employee appointment pursuant to Government Code Section 54957B1. Interviews for child support services director, appointment of child services director. 8.5, addendum, conference with legal negotiator, A, county negotiators, S. Parker and P. Samick, and B, employee organizations, LCDDAA, LCDSA, LCCOA, LCEA, LCSEA, and LCSMA. And we will come back for lunch at 1 p.m. Back from lunch.